Chapter 144. Chen Miao Miao noticed Li Si's abnormality. She turned around and asked in confusion, "Li Si, what's wrong?" Li Si wiped his tears and said, "It's nothing. The wind is a little strong today. I think some sand got into my eyes." Chen Miao Miao said with concern, "Let me help you blow." "No need." Li Si said, "I'll be fine after I cry for a while." Lu Hanyan saw someone familiar and quickly let go of Li Mu's hand. Wan also let go. Li Mu glanced at Li Si and smiled at Chen Miao Miao. "Miss Miao Miao is back." Chen Miao Miao looked at Li Mu in confusion. She quickly remembered and smiled. "It's you. We met in Yangqiu County." Li Mu didn't want to disturb Li Si and Chen Miao Miao's reunion. He smiled and said, "We still have some things to do. We won't disturb you. You can continue shopping." Ever since she met Chen Miao Miao, Wan had a lot on her mind. Li Mu accompanied Lu Hanyan to look at the unfinished shop. Wan couldn't help but ask, "Young mistress, will I look like Miss Miao Miao in the future? Just keep your little heart in your stomach." Lu Hanyan patted her head gently and comforted her. "Miss Miao Miao didn't want to be like this. She doesn't eat as much as you." She then looked at Li Mu and asked, "Is Li Si really together with Miss Miao Miao?" Li Mu had told her about Lin Wan's case and also about Li Si and Chen Miao Miao. He nodded and said, "I'm afraid he has no choice but to be together with her." Lu Hanyan said, "That's good too. Otherwise, he won't be doing his job and loitering around brothels." Actually, he wasn't like this before. Having received a lot of favors from Li Si, Li Mu decided to defend him. "In the past, he was just like me. He wouldn't even take a second look at the brothels when he passed by. He has a fiancée named Qing Qing. Qing and he are childhood sweethearts. He scrimps and saves every day, eating steamed buns and drinking water to save up his salary. He wants to gather enough betrothal gifts for Qing Qing." Lu Hanyan listened attentively and asked, "What happened next?" Li Mu said slowly, "Later, when he gathered all the betrothal gifts, Qing Qing had already married a rich man as a concubine. She despised Li Si for being too poor and unable to give her the life she wanted." Lu Hanyan frowned and said, "The life you want depends on your own efforts. It's fine if you don't marry this kind of woman. She doesn't have any self-reliance and self-respect. She deserves to be a man's vassal for the rest of her life. It's not worth it for him to fall for such a woman." With Lu Hanyan's own experience, it was normal for her to look down on these women who worshipped money. Li Mu said, "Men can't forget their first love. Qing Qing was the first woman Li Si liked. The deeper the love, the deeper the hurt. Qing Qing. Lu Hanyan seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Li Mu and asked, "So, you also can't forget Arrestor Li?" Li Mu looked around and suddenly said, "Wang, are you hungry? Let's go eat." The prefectural minister's manner. Chen Miao Miao sent Li Si back to his room and said, "If there's anything else you need, just tell me. I'll have my father prepare it." Li Si was silent for a moment. He turned his head to look at her and said, "Actually, there's something I've been hiding from you." Chen Miao Miao was stunned and asked, "What is it?" Li Si said, "My name isn't Li Si. My name is Li Si." Chen Miao Miao asked doubtfully, Then when we first met, why did you say your name was Li Shan?" "To hide my identity and purpose." Li Si's eyes were apologetic. He said, "In order to bring Zhao Yong to justice, I had no choice but to lie to you." Chen Miao Miao's face gradually paled. She muttered, "So, you've been lying to me all this time. You've never liked me?" Li Si didn't answer directly. He only sighed and said, "You're a good girl with a good family background and a kind heart. I'm just a small bailiff. I only have a salary of 500 coins a month and I often hang around brothels. I'm not as good as you think." Chen Miao Miao shook her head and said, "I don't care about your past or your identity. I only care if you're sincere to me." Li Si said, "I'm so poor that I can't even support myself. You won't be happy if you follow me." Chen Miao Miao raised her head and said, "As long as I can be with the person I like, I'll be happy. If you feel uncomfortable here, we can go back to Yangqiu County. If you can't support me, then I'll support you. I can pawn those gold and silver jewelry and exchange it for money. It's enough for us to live. We can also do a small business. We can live well without father's care. Li Si stared at her in a daze. The image of a woman nestled in someone else's arms, ignoring his pleas, and closing the vermilion door appeared before his eyes once more. You're just a small bailiff. You won't have any future in your life. I won't be happy if I follow you. The woman's words were still deeply engraved in his heart. He looked at Chen Miao and suddenly laughed. Li Si raised his hand and wiped away her tears. He said, "Everything I've said to you is true." Chen Miao smiled through her tears. She held his hand and said, "I'm also true. I'm willing to go to Yangqiu County with you because I want to suffer with you." Li Si shook his head and said, "You're willing to suffer with me, but I'm not willing to let you suffer. Let's stay in the county capital." In the past few days, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan's relationship had warmed up daily. Although she would ask some questions about death from time to time, under Li Si's influence and guidance, they were able to survive each dangerous situation safely. When he saw Li Si again, Li Mu was shocked. 3 days ago, he was only an ordinary person without any mana. 3 days later, he had already refined the 3 souls. The saber at his waist had also been replaced with a treasured saber. He looked at Li Si and said in shock, "You've really made up your mind?" Li Si nodded and said, "I've made up my mind. Miao Miao is a good girl. I can't let her down." The prodigal son had turned over a new leaf and the Sea King had come ashore. It was a joyous occasion. Li Mu clasped his hands and said, "Congratulations." Li Si shook his head and said, "However, father-in-law also has a condition. He wants me to cultivate to at least the transcendent realm before marrying Miao Miao." If Li Si cultivated alone, it would probably take him at least 20 years to reach the middle realm. However, with his speed of refining 1 soul per day, if his rich and powerful father-in-law was willing to spend unlimited cultivation resources on him, his cultivation could reach the transcendent realm within 2 years. Although his battle prowess could not compare to a normal transcendent realm cultivator, his cultivation was at the middle realm. Li Si asked, "How's your matter?" Li Mu nodded and said, "It's just a matter of time. I said that sooner or later, you two will fall in love with each other." Li Si's expression showed that he understood and asked again, "However, have you really thought it through? Are you sure you won't regret it in the future?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "Why would I regret it?" Li Si looked at him and nodded slightly. "Cherish what you can now. Let's talk about the future later." The two walked on the street. When they passed by Spring Wind Pavilion, Li Si looked straight ahead while Li Mu glanced at it. Li Si said in surprise, "You're not interested in this kind of place, are you? You think I'm you?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "There's a very important case related to this brothel." Li Si looked back at Spring Wind Pavilion. After a while, he nodded and said, "There is indeed a problem with this brothel." Li Mu's heaven's eye and insight couldn't see the problem with this brothel. He looked at Li Si and asked in surprise, "What did you see?" Li Si said, "The girls here are not real brothel girls. When I first came here, they actually took my money." Li Mu asked, "You talked about life with them?" Li Si said, "Yes. There really is a problem." Li Mu whispered and looked at Spring Wind Pavilion. "You go first, I'll go in and take a look. Be careful." Li Si left directly. Li Mu turned and walked into Spring Wind Pavilion. On the other side of the street, Zhang Shan saw Li Si and Li Mu walking side by side. He was about to say hello, but just as he raised his arm, he froze. He saw Li Si walk past the street without stopping, and Li Mu walk into the brothel without hesitation. He rubbed his eyes and murmured, "Damn, I must be too tired these 2 days. I can't even tell Li Si and Li Mu apart." Lu Hanyan came out of a bookstore and saw Zhang Shan standing at the door. She asked, "What's wrong?" Zhang Shan shook his head and said, "Nothing, my eyes are a bit blurry." Chapter 145. Spring Wind Pavilion. As soon as Li Mu walked in, the brothel keeper greeted him with a smile. "Young master, do you know any girls? Would you like me to recommend them to you?" "Li Mu, it's my first time here." The smile on the brothel keeper's face became bigger. "Oh, it's a new guest. Today, you must serve the young master well." Xianxia, Xiao, Rong, you three come here. Several girls were called over by the brothel keeper. The brothel keeper approached Li Mu and asked with a smile, "These three are the top girls in our shop. They are proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Young master, which one do you like?" Li Mu took a step back, keeping a distance from the brothel keeper, and looked at the three girls opposite him. Of the three, one was petite and cute, one had a hot figure, and one was tall and cold. Li Mu thought for a moment, pointed to the third one, and said, "She is." The brothel keeper said, Rong, why don't you lead the young master upstairs?" "Young master, please." The cold woman said coldly to Li Mu and turned to go upstairs. Although it was Li Mu's first time in a brothel, he knew that the attitude of a brothel woman to a guest was not like this. Li Si and Li Mu had said this kind of trick was just one of the methods they used to attract guests. This woman was not really cold, this was just her character. After all, the guests who could choose her were generally a little masochistic. They liked this kind of cold type, which made them more excited. The woman opened the door of a room and led Li Mu in. Then, she sat on the edge of the bed and pretended to be unapproachable. Li Mu walked to her side and asked, "Can you play the zither?" The woman was stunned for a moment and shook her head. "Can you play the flute?" The woman continued to shake her head. "How about the pipa?" The woman still shook her head. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "You can't do this, you can't do that, and you have the nerve to say that you're proficient in everything. Go down and tell the brothel keeper to get someone who can do these things." The woman was stunned for a moment. Then, she suddenly stood up and walked downstairs angrily. She said to the procuress, "There's a strange person here. He doesn't do what he should do and only wants to listen to music. Is he crazy? Who would come to a brothel to listen to music? I can't take this job. In this world, there are all kinds of hobbies. I usually ask you to practice the zither, but you don't listen. Now you're blaming the customer." The brothel keeper shook her head and said to the voluptuous woman, Chiao, you go." Li Mu sat in the room for a while. The plump woman named Chiao, whom the brothel keeper had introduced just now, swayed her hips and walked in. She hugged de Guqin and asked with a smile, "Young master, what song do you want me to play?" "Li Mu, just play whatever you know." The woman put the Guqin aside and began to take off her clothes. Li Mu was stunned for a moment and asked, "If you want to play the zither, then play the zither. Why are you taking off your clothes?" The plump woman was startled and asked, "Do I have to wear it and play it?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Wear it." The woman looked at him strangely. She could only sit down and play the zither with both hands. This woman's zither skills could only be regarded as a beginner. But it was still incomparable to Lu Hanyan. Li Mu was used to Lu Hanyan playing the zither. Listening to her again, it was somewhat boring. The woman played the zither and found that there was no movement beside the bed. She looked up and found that the young customer was lying on the bed asleep. She couldn't help but feel strange. In the past few months, she had served a lot of customers, but this was the first time she met someone like him. He came to the brothel and didn't look for physical entertainment. He only listened to music and fell asleep. However, she was not too surprised. She had seen men with all kinds of hobbies. Some people's hobbies in this area were so abnormal that it made people's hair stand on end. Compared to them, this young master was nothing. She played for a while and saw that the other party had fallen asleep. Her fingers left the strings, stood up, and lit an incense burner. As the incense burner emitted green smoke, a trace of weak yang qi drifted out from Li Mu's body and was absorbed into the incense burner. After doing this, the woman walked to the bed and looked at Li Mu's face. She murmured, "You look so handsome, where can't you find a woman? Why did you come to this kind of place?" She gently stroked Li Mu's face and sighed, "What a handsome young master." Li Mu, who was lying on the bed, already knew what this brothel was doing secretly. They were the same as the green snake, sucking people's yang qi. However, the green snake was obviously not smart enough. It only grabbed one person and sucked. Naturally, it was easy to reveal flaws and be noticed by the authorities. And the same method of sucking people's yang qi, this brothel's method was much more brilliant. The customers who came here were originally here to have fun. Coincidentally, Their way of having fun was also very physically and mentally exhausting. This way, even if they lost some yang qi, no one would notice. The lack of yang qi was not much different from the lack of kidney qi. They didn't need to absorb too much from a person. As long as the brothel was open, there would be an endless stream of customers. The yang qi was inexhaustible. This woman was not a demon ghost, nor was she a cultivator. She mainly relied on that strange incense burner to absorb yang qi. In order not to arouse suspicion, Li Mu took the initiative to release a trace of yang qi for her to absorb. He also didn't absorb too much of this woman's lust, so that she wouldn't feel the slightest discomfort. In the process of carrying out his task, he didn't forget to take advantage of her. After all, whether or not she could complete the collection of yang qi and successfully condense the sixth essence depended on this. Li Mu didn't know where the yang qi absorbed by the incense burner went. He was only here today to find out. During this period, he would probably become a regular here. After all, the county government didn't want to destroy this place. They wanted to secretly investigate and find out the secret of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. He had absorbed enough of yang qi. If he continued, this woman would notice. Li Mu heaved a sigh of relief and slowly opened his eyes. "Young master, you're awake." The woman sat by the bed and smiled. "Do you want me to help you bathe?" "No need. I just want to sleep for a while." Li Mu said, "I haven't been sleeping well these few days. After listening to your song, I feel much better. I'll look for you again next time." The woman stared blankly as Li Mu got off the bed, put on his shoes and walked out. She sat by the bed and said in surprise, "That's it." "That's it?" Downstairs, Li Mu looked at the brothel keeper and asked, "Listening to a song costs 1 tael of silver?" The brothel keeper smiled and said, "1 tael of silver is cheap. If young master goes to the music house and orders the ladies, it will be even more expensive." Li Mu didn't talk nonsense with the brothel keeper. He simply took out the money. He knew that this kind of place was expensive, but he didn't expect it to be so expensive. This money must be reimbursed by the government office later. The plump woman came down from upstairs and said, "This young master is really strange. He just listened to a song and slept." The brothel keeper didn't care and said, "There are all kinds of people in this world. It's not strange after seeing many of them." After she said that, she asked a question without rhyme or reason. "You didn't forget, right?" The plump woman nodded and said, "I didn't forget." The brothel keeper said, "That's good. Go outside and get customers." Li Mu walked out of Spring Wind Pavilion. He didn't go to the government office, nor did he go home. First, he walked around for a while to see if anyone was following him. It was difficult for a normal man to go to a brothel to listen to music without arousing suspicion. But this was something that couldn't be helped. Arrestor Zhao's intention was to let him put on a show and be a dedicated undercover agent. He had to make the show real and use real guns and real bullets. Of course, Li Mu couldn't accept it. For a mission, he lost the primordial yang energy that he had saved for 19 years. It was a bloody loss. His primordial yang energy was reserved for Lu Hanyan. On the street of June City, at the door of a tea house, Lu Hanyan looked at the door of Spring Wind Pavilion and asked Zhang Shan, "Did Li Mu just come out from inside?" Zhang Shan quickly shook his head and said, "No, I didn't see him. You must have mistaken him for someone else." When Li Mu returned home, Lu Hanyan was sitting in the courtyard with her back to him. Wan Wan stood beside her and kept winking at Li Mu. Lu Hanyan turned to look at him and asked, "Where did you go at noon?" Li Mu said, "I didn't do anything, nothing." Lu Hanyan stood up and looked at him with disappointment. "Wan Wan and I saw you come out of the brothel with our own eyes." Li Mu was startled and explained, Lu Hanyan said sadly, "What about you? Don't tell me that you went to the brothel just to listen to music?" Li Mu was silent for a moment. He looked at her and said helplessly, "If I said that I really just listened to a song, would you believe me?" Lu Hanyan didn't say anything. Li Mu didn't expect that he would be caught red-handed doing a proper job. Times had changed. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have needed to explain to Lu Hanyan. But it was different now. If he didn't explain, the wife he was about to pursue might run away. Li Mu looked pleadingly at the little fox and said, Xiao Bai, you're the only one who can prove my innocence now. Xiao Bai understood and jumped onto the table. She said to Lu Hanyan, Big Sister Lu, you misunderstood. Nothing really happened with our benefactor. Lu Hanyan said angrily, You're still speaking up for him at this point. No, I'm not siding with our benefactor. Xiao Bai leaned close to Lu Hanyan's ear and whispered a few words. Lu Hanyan was stunned for a moment. She said in disbelief, You can tell? Xiao Bai nodded and said, This is the talent of our clan. Our benefactor still has his vitality. Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and said, I swear, I went to the brothel today for an errand. I came back after listening to a song. I didn't even touch those girls. Lu Hanyan already believed him, but she still said stubbornly, What errand required you to go to the brothel? Li Mu didn't answer. He just shook his head and said, You don't trust me. You've disappointed me. He ignored Lu Hanyan and went straight to his room. After a while, Lu Hanyan walked in from outside and whispered, I was wrong. Li Mu glanced at her. What was wrong? Lu Hanyan lowered her head and said, I shouldn't have mistrusted you. Li Mu snorted and said, Is one wrong enough? Lu Hanyan thought for a moment and threw him on the bed. She kissed him lightly on the lips and asked, I gave you my first kiss. Is that enough? Li Mu pursed his lips and said, You can make a few more mistakes next time. In your dreams. Lu Hanyan sat up again and asked, Was this your first kiss too? Li Mu thought for a moment and nodded. You're also the first woman I kissed. Chapter 146. Lu Hanyan was the first and only woman Li Mu had ever kissed. Suhi was a ghost, not a human. At that time, Li Mu's life was in danger. He was almost killed by Thousand Illusions' venerable master's soul power. He was in a coma and didn't have time to think about other things. Thinking of Suhi, he didn't know if she had come out of seclusion or if she had received the two ghosts Li Mu had sent her. Lu Hanyan was keenly aware of something and asked Li Mu, What are you thinking about? Li Mu quickly came back to his senses and said, You kissed me too quickly. I wasn't ready yet. Do you want to do it again, in your dreams? Lu Hanyan left in a hurry with a red face. Li Mu was relieved. Haste makes waste, and Lu Hanyan couldn't eat hot tofu. She took the initiative to kiss Li Mu, which was already a big step forward in their relationship. If Li Mu took an inch and wanted a mile, it would have the opposite effect. Let nature take its course. One day, the two of them would be able to completely give themselves to each other. Being caught by Lu Hanyan in the act of going to the brothel was also good. In the future, he could openly enter Spring Wine Pavilion without worrying about Lu Hanyan being angry. During the day, he only saw that the brothel was using some kind of utensils to absorb the yang energy of the customers. At night, Li Mu went to Spring Wind Pavilion again. As usual, he called a woman to play the zither while he slept on the bed. When the woman saw that Li Mu was sleeping, the zither gradually slowed down and stopped. She glanced at the sleeping Li Mu, picked up the incense burner, and left the room. When she left, she didn't notice that a paper figurine the size of her pinky was stuck to the bottom of her shoe. With the sound of the door closing, Li Mu, who had long since fallen asleep on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. Paper dolls were a secret technique of the Fulu school. Originally, only the disciples of the Fulu school could make them. Li Mu had found the method to make them from the memories of the Thousand Illusions' venerable master. The paper dolls created through the Fulu method could replace the owner to do some things. They could also be used to explore dangerous places. They had a wide range of uses. With the aid of the paper doll, he could hear the voices around the woman. In his ears, other than the sound of gentle footsteps, there were occasional moans of men and women. As the woman walked down the stairs and into the backyard, Li Mu's ears finally quieted down. Spring Wind Pavilion, backyard. The woman carried the incense burner to an ancient well. The brothel keeper of Spring Wind Pavilion was guarding the well. The woman slowly walked over and handed the incense burner to her. The procuress took the incense burner and said, You stay here and guard. Don't let any outsiders come in. The woman nodded respectfully and stood at the mouth of the well. The procuress held the incense burner and looked around. Seeing that there was no one in the courtyard, she directly jumped into the well. Li Mu was lying on the bed in the room. He didn't know what was going on around the woman. After the procuress's voice disappeared, there was no more sound. With the help of the paper doll, the range of hearing was limited. Li Mu was too far away from the woman, so his hearing couldn't work. He thought for a moment, got down from the bed, went around the back door, and flashed into the backyard. He covered his stomach and ran around. The woman found him and said in panic, "Young master, why did you come down?" Li Mu's face turned red. "Latrine, where is the latrine?" The woman pointed to the corner and said, "The latrine is there." Li Mu ran into the latrine in the corner of the courtyard. The woman looked at the latrine and then at the mouth of the well. She slowly put down a wooden bucket. Li Mu closed the latrine door and silently recited the clear heart chant to eliminate all disturbances. Finally, with his hearing, he vaguely heard some sounds. The sound came from underground. Li Mu thought of the dry well in the courtyard. He was sure that there was a problem with the well. Ghost General, last place, sacrifice, Yang Qi. The sound coming from underground was very weak. Li Mu could roughly hear it. He was worried that if he stayed too long, he would be discovered and affect his plan. After listening for a moment, he walked out of the latrine, left 1 silver, and left Spring Wind Pavilion. A moment later, in the backyard of Spring Wind Pavilion, the woman lifted the wooden bucket and the procuress's body slowly floated out of the well. He looked at the woman and asked, "No one came here, right?" The woman shook her head. The nervousness on the procuress's face disappeared. She swayed her body and left. The woman left as well. As she walked, the paper dolls under her feet gradually turned to dust and disappeared. Half a month passed in a flash. In this half a month, everything in Spring Wind Pavilion was normal. The only difference was that every day, a young master would come here and pick a girl. He would only listen to music and sleep, not doing the things that men and women like to do. At first, everyone was a little strange, but after a long time, they became accustomed to it. Many of the guests who came here had strange fetishes. Some had a special liking for women's feet, some liked to be whipped by girls, and some liked to wear girls' underwear. Compared to them, the young master's hobbies were nothing. Yangqiu County Government. Li Mu, wearing a cloak, entered from the back door and went to the guard room. In this half a month, he went to Spring Wind Pavilion every day and secretly investigated some information. At the same time, he also accumulated a lot of lust. Almost all the prostitutes in Spring Wind Pavilion had been sucked by him. He sat in the guard room for a while. Not long after, Constable Zhao came in from outside. He walked in front of Li Mu and asked, "How's the investigation?" Li Mu nodded and said, "After more than half a month of secret investigation, I found that behind Spring Wind Pavilion, there is indeed a ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojosian controlling it. Her hiding place is in the well in the backyard of Spring Wind Pavilion." Constable Zhao said, "The ghost Qi is hidden in the well. No wonder you can't see anything strange from the outside." Li Mu continued, "The procuress and prostitutes of Spring Wind Pavilion should have been bewitched by her long ago. They secretly absorbed the yang qi of the guests for her to cultivate. Demonic ghosts could not only eat people, but they were also good at bewitching people. Those who were bewitched by them would completely become their slaves, unable to have the slightest disloyalty." Constable Zhao asked, "Why did this ghost take the risk to cause trouble in the county capital? Did you find the reason?" "I found it." Li Mu nodded and said, "The 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojosian are not fixed. As long as the ghost soldiers under him are strong enough, they can replace their positions at any time. Not only that, Chu Jiang of Gojosian also set a cruel rule for the 18 ghost generals." Constable Zhao asked, "What rule?" Li Mu continued, "Within a certain period of time, the last ghost general who has not reached the spirit realm will be used as a sacrifice. His spirit will be erased and his soul will be sacrificed. In the backyard of Spring Wind Pavilion, the female ghost under the well has the strength of a peak evil spirit, almost reaching the spirit realm. She absorbs the yang qi of these people in order to advance. If she succeeds in advancing to the spirit realm, she will not have to worry about being sacrificed." Although the strength of a peak evil spirit ranked at the bottom of the 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon, it was not the last. The culprit who made the female ghost so nervous was actually Li Mu. Before he killed the ghost general was ranked last among the 18 ghost generals. After he killed the ghost general, the female ghost became the last. If she didn't work hard, her intelligence would be erased and she would become someone else's nourishment. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon could think of such a way to motivate his employees. He was a genius. Constable Zhao asked, "Did you find out the secret of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "If Chu Jiang of Gojoseon really has a secret, I'm afraid it's not something a low-level ghost general can know." "That's true." Constable Zhao nodded and said, "Continue to investigate first. Once you have any news, immediately report to the county government." Li Mu had a troubled look on his face. Constable Zhao asked, "What's the problem?" Li Mu said, "The expenses at Spring Wind Pavilion are too expensive. From start to finish, I have already spent more than 10 taels of silver. I can't keep paying like this. How about the Yamen give me some in advance?" Constable Zhao said in surprise. "Didn't they say that you hooked up with a rich woman, lived in a big house, and wore clothes of the best quality?" Li Mu froze for a moment and said angrily, "Who leaked? Who spread the rumor?" Constable Zhao smiled and said, "I only heard about it. The Yamen should pay for these taels of silver. I'll go to the treasury later to get it for you." Constable Zhao left the guard room and quickly came back. He gave Li Mu 30 taels of silver and said, "Take these 30 taels of silver first. If it's not enough, come to the Yamen to get more." Li Mu took the taels of silver and thought that he could be extravagant today. He could order 2 girls, one to play the zither, one to play the flute, and one to play the zither and flute. Anyway, the Yamen would reimburse him. If he exceeded the budget, he could apply again. After Constable Zhao finished speaking, he took out another item and handed it to Li Mu. He said, "The female ghost at the peak of the evil spirit realm is not to be underestimated. If things change, you might have to confront her directly. Take this magic weapon and return it when you're done." Li Mu looked down at the item in his hand. It looked like a soft branch, light as if it was weightless. He looked at Constable Zhao and asked, "What is this?" Constable Zhao explained, "This item is called the soul-beating whip. It's made from a 1,000-year-old willow branch and can cause great damage to souls and primordial spirits. With one whip, an ordinary Yin spirit or resentful spirit will die and scatter. Even if it's an evil spirit, it won't feel good if it gets whipped. As long as you use this whip to delay the female ghost for a moment and send a message in time, the Yamen's reinforcements will arrive immediately." Li Mu's eyes lit up. The whip's restraint on souls was even stronger than his Bai sword. After using it, he had to figure out a way to get it. It would be a good idea to give it to Wan Wan for self-defense. Constable Zhao saw the light in his eyes and coughed softly. He said, "This is something from the Yamen. I'm only lending it to you temporarily. You have to return it when you're done with it." Li Mu smiled and said, I understand. He put away the soul-beating whip and thought for a moment. He asked again, "If something from the Yamen is broken or lost in the process of carrying out a task, do I have to pay for it?" Chapter 147. If he could get a free meal, Li Mu certainly wouldn't want to waste the opportunity to choose a reward. Unfortunately, Constable Zhao mercilessly told him that if something was lost or broken, he would have to pay for it. The value of each magic weapon couldn't be measured by the money of the secular world. If it had to be converted into silver, it would be at least 1,000 taels of silver. Although Lu Hanyan didn't lack this 1,000 taels of silver, she certainly wouldn't allow Li Mu to be so prodigal. Li Mu temporarily dispelled the idea of stealing this magic weapon. He put away the soul-beating whip. As long as he didn't activate it, no aura would leak out, and he wasn't afraid of being sensed by the evil spirit. Spring Wind Pavilion. When Li Mu walked in again, the brothel keeper greeted him and said with familiarity, "Oh, young master, are you going to order some more chow chow this time?" Li Mu had just received the special funds from the Yamen, so he generously said, "I'll order 2 this time. You can arrange it as you see fit." The brothel keeper said, "If it's 2, you'll have to pay more. In any case, the money would have to be returned." One more person meant one more person. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Fine, I'll pay more. Do I look like someone who can't afford to pay more?" "Of course not." The brothel keeper's face was full of smiles. She beckoned the 2 women and said, "Hua Huan Huan, you 2 accompany the young master." After entering the room, Li Mu had one woman play the zither and the other massage his legs. After a while, he had them switch places. The woman who was massaging his legs went to play the zither and the woman who was playing the zither massaged his legs. In this way, he could evenly and continuously absorb the lust of the 2. It had to be said that this body was simply a sharp tool to harvest lust. He could cultivate by lying down every day. Li Mu closed his eyes as if he was enjoying himself, but his mind had already followed the brothel keeper to the bottom of the well. The silver he had just given to the brothel keeper had already been tampered with by him. There was a paper man at the bottom of the silver and a layer of silver powder. As long as the silver powder wasn't deliberately scraped off, the paper man wouldn't be found. The procuress carried the money with her. This time, Li Mu heard the voice very clearly through the paper figurine. Spring Wind Pavilion's backyard, under the well. This well was dry and devoid of water, but there was another space. In a small space under the well, there were tables, chairs, and cabinets. Nothing was lacking. A red-clothed woman was lazily lying on a bed. On the cabinet in front of the bed, there were several incense burners. The red-clothed woman gently took a deep breath. White smoke rose from the incense burners and was slowly sucked into her nose. After inhaling the smoke, a satisfied look appeared on her face. The procuress stood respectfully in front of the bed. After she finished inhaling the smoke, she replaced the incense burner with the other one. The woman in red took a few deep breaths and said, "You don't have to send any more incense burners down. The ones in the room can also be removed." Hearing this, the brothel keeper's face lit up. She asked, "Madam, are you finally going to be promoted?" The woman in red exhaled and said, "It's too late." The procuress was surprised. "How can it be too late?" The woman in red said, "In 3 days, His Highness will summon all the ghost generals. According to the news I received, a month ago, the green-faced ghost was killed by someone. There are only 17 ghost generals left. Without him, I'm the last of the ghost generals. If I can't advance to the spirit realm in 3 days, I will become His Highness' sacrifice." The procuress hurriedly asked, "What does Madame plan to do?" The woman in red got out of bed and said, "Fortunately, I'm only 1 step away from the spirit realm. As long as I absorb the young souls of all the men in this building, I can immediately advance." The procuress was worried, "But if Madame does this, I'm afraid you won't be able to hide it for long. The Yamen will soon know." The woman in red said, "These heartless men who only think with their lower bodies deserve to die. After I absorb them, I will leave here. You all should also run for your lives." On the bed in a room on the 2nd floor of Spring Wind Pavilion, Li Mu suddenly opened his eyes. The woman who was massaging his legs was surprised. "Young master, did I hurt you?" Li Mu said, "It's none of your business. You can leave first. I want to sleep alone." The 2 of them stood up and silently left the room. The moment the door closed, Li Mu got up from the bed and crushed a communication jade token without hesitation. After his investigation and the information collected by the Yamen over the past few years about Chu Jiang of Gojoseon and the 18 ghost generals, he found that the one who was hiding in Spring Wind Pavilion and absorbing the yang energy of the brothel guests was an evil ghost called Lustful Man, under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. The one Li Mu killed was called Green-Faced Ghost. Lustful Man and Green-Faced Ghost were ranked very low among the 18 ghost generals. Li Mu thought that Lustful Man would be obedient and slowly absorb the yang energy. He didn't expect that he would kill Green-Faced Ghost and force Lustful Man into a desperate situation. 3 days later, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon would summon the ghost generals. At that time, Lustful Man would have to die again if he couldn't advance to the soul realm. Therefore, she was prepared to risk everything and use the brothel guests in exchange for a chance to advance. This brothel was under her control. Even if the guests died in the brothel, they would be discovered at least at night or even the next day. It would take time for the Jade token to send a message and for reinforcements to arrive. During this time, lustful man would have absorbed many people. Li Mu didn't have time to hesitate. He pushed the door open and went downstairs. He walked down the stairs and saw a woman in red walking out of the backyard with the procuress. The woman in red had an ordinary face. She looked like an ordinary woman, but Li Mu felt that she was very dangerous. Li Mu's mind raced. In the next moment, he walked in front of the procuress and said, "I've been here so many times. Today, I don't want to listen to music. I want to eat meat." The procuress naturally knew what it meant to eat meat. She smiled and said, "Young master, who do you like? I'll arrange it for you." Li Mu pointed at the woman in red and said, "I want her." The procuress's expression changed and she laughed dryly. This won't do." Li Mu threw over an ingot of silver and said, "Why not? Do you have money that you don't want to earn here?" The old woman was about to speak when the woman in red took the silver and said with a smile, "As long as you don't mind me being old, I'm willing to accompany you for a while." The procuress's lips moved, but she didn't dare to say anything. Li Mu smiled at the woman in red and said, "Let's go." Seeing the two of them go up the stairs one after another, the procuress shook her head and said, "He's so handsome." "What a pity," she sighed and said to a woman beside her, "Let everyone stand outside. Today we'll attract more guests." On the second floor, Li Mu led the woman in red in and turned to close the door. In order to prevent this female ghost from killing others, he could only take the risk. However, wealth came from danger. This female ghost wanted to suck Li Mu's yang qi, and Li Mu also wanted to suck her lust. That green snake made Li Mu want to eat it. He had long wanted to find a more powerful demon ghost to harvest. This woman was only one step away from the soul realm. If he sucked her lust, and coupled with the gains from Li Mu's brothel during this period of time, it should be enough for him to condense the seventh soul. In this way, among the 7 souls, he only lacked the 5th soul. Fei Du, the woman in red, walked to the bed and leaned against it. She said, "Young master, you have to take pity on me." Li Mu walked to the bed and pretended to untie his belt. The woman in red sucked gently, and the yang qi in Li Mu's body dissipated and was sucked into her body. She coveted Li Mu's yang qi, so she would definitely have desire for Li Mu. Li Mu took a deep breath. The strong power of lust made him intoxicated. In order to make her more lust, Li Mu controlled the yang qi and poured it out of his body. He had already refined the 5 souls and had a pure yang body. The yang qi in his body was very abundant. This loss was nothing. The woman in red had a strange look in her eyes. The yang qi of the person in front of her was completely different from the yang qi of those men. Not only was it endless, but it also played a far better role in her cultivation than ordinary men. A greedy look appeared on her face as she increased the speed of her absorption. Li Mu's belt was still not untied. The speed of his absorption increased as well. Suddenly, a suspicious look appeared on the woman in red's face. After absorbing so much yang qi, not only did she not feel excited, she even felt a little weak. Li Mu had absorbed enough of the lust. Seeing that the ghost was suspicious, he raised his hand without hesitation and flung out a whip shadow from his sleeve, lashing the woman in red. The woman in red could not dodge at all and was instantly whipped. Sizzle! When the soul-striking whip struck her, a black mark appeared on her body. Wisps of ghostly qi spread out from the mark. "You're a cultivator." The woman in red's face was filled with anger. After coming to her senses, she stabbed her 2 ghostly claws at Li Mu's body. Li Mu was already prepared. As he retreated quickly, he lashed out with his whip again. Another black mark appeared on the woman's hand. Her face was extremely ferocious. She let out an angry roar and no longer bothered with Li Mu. She turned into a cloud of black mist and broke out of the window. She had actually escaped. Li Mu walked to the window and sensed a powerful aura. It was chasing after Lei Feng. Since the county governor had already made his move, Li Mu did not need to chase after her. He walked to the door and knocked out the procuress who had heard the commotion in the room and was about to come in to check. Many constables rushed in from the door and subdued all the brothel girls who did not know what had happened. Constable Zhao walked in and said, "The county governor has personally chased after her. She can't escape. Why did you suddenly clash with her? Did she find out?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "In 3 days, Chu Jiang of Gojosian will gather all the ghost generals. The woman in red does not want to be sacrificed and is prepared to risk everything. She will kill everyone in the brothel and suck their yang qi and blood. I had no choice but to lure her into the room and send you a message at the same time." Constable Zhao patted him on the shoulder and said, "Well done. When we return to the county office, you will be rewarded. Can you return the soul-striking whip first?" Chapter 148. P.S. In the previous chapter, the name of the female ghost has been changed to Mrs. Chu. Li Mu regretfully handed the soul-beating whip to Constable Zhao. When he felt the lust in his body, his mood became better again. For Mrs. Chu, if she couldn't reach the soul realm in 3 days, she would be sacrificed to Chu Jiang of Gojosian. Therefore, she had an extremely urgent desire to absorb Li Mu's yang qi. This desire between life and death just happened to make Li Mu. He could feel that the lust in his body had been perfected and he could condense his soul at any time. In Spring Wind Pavilion, the 2 women, Xiao Xiao and Rong Rong, looked at Li Mu angrily. They gritted their teeth and said, "It's you who harmed Mrs. Chu." Li Mu had called them out the most in the past half-month, so he was the most familiar with them. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry, I'm a constable." Many prostitutes in the brothel, including the madam, had long been bewitched by Mrs. Chu. They regarded her as their master in their hearts. They needed the cultivators of the yamen to forcibly intervene in their minds so that they could become ordinary people again. Constable Zhao looked at the crowd and ordered, "Take them back to the yamen first." The constables took the prostitutes and marched to the yamen, attracting the attention of countless passers-by. When they passed by Yunyan Pavilion, even Lu Hanyan ran out to watch the fun. She saw Li Mu walking at the front at a glance. She ran over and asked, "What's going on?" Li Mu said, "Behind Spring Wind Pavilion, there is a female ghost controlling it. These are all brothel girls who have been bewitched by her. Now I want to take them back to the government office and remove the bewitchment of the female ghost. Now you should believe that I went to the brothel to do something serious, right?" Lu Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and said, "I'm not by your side. Who knows what you're doing inside?" Li Mu glanced at her and said, "Do you think I'm stupid enough to give away my primordial yang that I've been saving for 19 years to these prostitutes? My primordial yang is for you." Lu Hanyan blushed and quickly covered Li Mu's mouth. Since the last time she took the initiative to kiss him, he became bolder and bolder in front of her. The constables not far away did not hear what Li Mu said, but they saw the intimate actions of the two. One of the constables sighed and said, "Everyone said that Li Mu hooked up with a young, beautiful, and rich woman. I didn't believe it, but now I do." Another constable shook his head and said, "Li Mu is handsome and capable. He is highly regarded by Constable Zhao and the county lieutenant. His future is limitless. We can't be envious of him." Li Mu's hearing was very good. The words of those people entered his ears without missing a single word. He was a little depressed and said with a sigh, "They all said that I'm with you because of your money." Lu Hanyan said, "Isn't that the case? Shallow. Do you think I'm Zhang Shan who only has eyes for money?" Li Mu looked at her and said, "I like you because of your knowledge, gentleness, generosity, kindness, consideration, independence, talent, beauty, and dignity. Do you also say the same to those prostitutes?" Lu Hanyan glanced at Li Mu, but her wrist involuntarily wrapped around his. The Yunyan Pavilion would officially open in 2 days. She had nothing to do, so she held Li Mu's arm and followed him all the way to the county yamen. A few constables gathered the prostitutes in a room and removed the female ghost's charm on them. After a quarter of an hour, these women came out of the room. Although their faces were a little pale, their eyes were less rigid and more lively. Several women came over and bowed to Li Mu, gratefully saying, "Thank you for saving us. If it weren't for you, we would have been bewitched by that evil ghost for the rest of our lives." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "I'm a constable. This is what I should do." The brothel keeper of Spring Wind Pavilion was even more excited. She ran over and said to Li Mu, "If it weren't for you, our Spring Wind Pavilion would be finished. If you come to Spring Wind Pavilion in the future, you can order whoever you want. I promise you that I won't charge you a single cent." Li Mu was a little emotional. He never thought that one day he would be treated like Li Si in a brothel. Then he felt the temperature around him drop, and a chill rose from his heart. He said with a straight face, "There's no need for that." The brothel keeper thought Li Mu didn't believe her, so she quickly said, "You can come over today. I'll let your favorite Xiao and Rong serve you together." "Xiao, Rong, why aren't you coming over?" Constable Zhao looked at the two women coming over and said to Li Mu meaningfully, "One is cold and proud, and the other is beautiful beyond compare. You really know how to choose?" Lu Hanyan looked at Li Mu with a smile and asked, "So that's what you like? Between Xiao and Rong, who do you like more?" This was a question of death with only one correct answer. Xiao had a proud figure, while Rong was cold and arrogant. If Li Mu dared to say that he preferred the cold and arrogant one, he would have to sleep alone tonight. He cleared his throat and was about to speak when the brothel keeper spoke first. "I think His Excellency likes Rong more. The first time he came, he took a fancy to Rong at first sight." Lu Hanyan looked at Li Mu and said, "I'll go back first." Constable Zhao didn't understand. Li Si patted Li Mu's shoulder and said, "The devil is hidden in the details. You deserve it." When the brothel girls left the yamen, they looked at Li Mu reluctantly and said, "His Excellency will wait for you at Spring Wind Pavilion." Li Mu could somewhat understand how Li Si felt before, but he didn't want this feeling. Just as he was about to chase after Lu Hanyan, a figure came from outside. Commandant Shen walked into the yamen, holding a thick iron chain in one hand. On the other end of the iron chain was a woman with disheveled hair. Li Mu looked carefully and recognized that she was Madame Chu. However, at this time, she was in a very sorry state. Her clothes were tattered and her hair was disheveled. Even her originally solid body was much more illusory. The iron chain passed through her shoulder blade, making it impossible for her to turn into a soul and break free. Commandant Shen looked at her indifferently and asked, "Speak, what is Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's plot to come to the North County?" Madame Chu stared at him fiercely and didn't say a word. A smile appeared on Commandant Shen's face and he said coldly, "You won't speak, right?" Li Mu walked out of the yamen's courtyard and could still hear Madame Chu's miserable screams. He didn't expect that Commandant Shen, a gentle person, could be so cruel. Even Li Mu couldn't stand the way he forced Madame Chu to speak and could only temporarily avoid him. Constable Zhao followed him out and sighed. Commandant Shen's parents and wife were all killed by Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. His hatred for Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is unimaginable. When the screams in the courtyard stopped and Li Mu walked in again, Madame Chu's soul was extremely weak and was on the verge of dissipating. Commandant Shen glanced at Li Mu and said, "You haven't condensed your soul yet. Her soul power is useful to you. You can deal with it." Li Mu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Commandant Shen." It seemed that he didn't get any useful information from Madame Chu. After all, Madame Chu wasn't in the soul realm and wouldn't be valued by Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. She was ranked 17th among Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals, only slightly stronger than the 18th ranked green-faced ghost. Commandant Shen untied a gourd from his waist, raised his head and drank a mouthful of wine. Then he left alone. Li Mu glanced at Madame Chu and didn't do anything. Even if he didn't do anything, this ghost's soul would dissipate in 15 minutes. The reason why Li Mu didn't do anything was that Madame Chu's yin qi was extremely pure and clear. Obviously, she hadn't killed anyone before the Spring Wind Pavilion case. However, she still wanted to kill someone. Li Mu had the ability to save her, but he didn't plan to. Madame Chu was lying on the ground and her soul was on the verge of collapse. She suddenly laughed. Li Mu looked down at her and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Madame Chu's face showed a trace of sarcasm. She said, "I'm laughing at the ways of the world. Good people don't get good rewards while evil people sit firmly in the high court. You so-called government officials who make decisions for the people are just a group of people who bully the weak and fear the strong." Li Mu sneered and said, "You suck people's yang qi and want to kill them. What kind of good is that?" Madame Chu's soul had dissipated to the extreme. She didn't answer Li Mu and used the last of her strength to shout, "Cui Ming, you'll die a horrible death." She closed her eyes and her soul was about to dissipate. The next moment, a golden light entered her body and made her soul more solid. Li Mu looked down at her and asked, "Who did you just say?" Chapter 149. Li Mu was very familiar with the name Cui Ming. Su He's enemy was called this name. Although she did not tell Li Mu guessed that Cui Ming must have something to do with Su He's death 20 years ago. Madame Chu had already accepted her fate. She closed her eyes and said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. Give me a quick death." Li Mu asked, "The Cui Ming you're talking about, is it Cui Ming, the magistrate of Yangqiu County 20 years ago?" Madame Chu's eyes suddenly opened. She said sternly, "You know him too. Who is he to you?" Li Mu said calmly, "Enemy." He looked at Madame Chu and asked, "You have a grudge against him too?" Madame Chu's face was full of hatred. She gritted her teeth and said, "A great grudge. I want to cut him into pieces and eat him alive." Li Mu stood up and said, "Tell me. If what you say is true, I can spare your life." Madame Chu struggled to sit up and said, "He used to be my fiancé. My family used all their power to help him condense his primordial spirit. That was how he became the magistrate of Yangqiu County. However, he killed me and threw away my body not long after he became the magistrate. He wiped out my entire family and married the daughter of the magistrate of Zhejiang." Su He's experience was very similar to Madame Chu's. According to Li Mu's guess, Su He's death might be because of Madame Chu, and Madame Chu's death was because of the daughter of the magistrate of Zhejiang. Cui Ming's actions were similar to Zhao Yang's, but worse than Zhao Yang's. Madame Chu laughed bitterly and said, "I was fortunate to be able to survive in this world as a soul. During these past 20 years, I cultivated bitterly and didn't hesitate to join the ranks of King Chu Jiang, all for the sake of being able to take revenge one day. Unfortunately, I don't even know where he is before I die. He's in Zhong County." Leaning against the wall, Commandery Captain Shen took a sip of wine from the gourd and said, "Cui Ming, the husband of the daughter of the county chief of Zhejiang Commandery. 12 years ago, he exposed the collusion of the county chief of Zhejiang Commandery with the demon sect and was promoted by the late emperor. Later, he met Princess Yun Yang and became her husband. 3 years ago, he was promoted to assistant minister of the West platform." Mrs. Chu chuckled pitifully. Back then, he used the excuse of colluding with heretical cultivation to wipe out the entire Chu clan. The Zhejiang county chief invited the wolf into the house, so this day should have come. Karma, karma. Li Mu felt a chill in his heart when he heard this. Cui Ming had been promoted by stepping on the corpses of his wife's family. How could such a disloyal and heartless person enter the center of power of the imperial court? It was no wonder that Madame Chu sighed with regret before her death. Li Mu looked at Commandant Shen and asked, "Your Excellency, what should we do with her?" Commandery Captain Shen said, "I have already handed her over to you. You can decide whether to kill or keep her." Li Mu actually did not know how to deal with her. Madame Chu did not kill anyone and did not cause any serious consequences. According to the law, she did not deserve to be killed. However, she had bewitched the people and sucked their yang qi. He could not let her go just like that. Madame Chu looked at Bai, who was hanging from Li Mu's waist. Determination suddenly appeared in her eyes. She said, "If Cui Ming doesn't die, I won't be able to rest in peace. I am willing to become the spirit of your sword and serve you." Spirit bodies and soul bodies could be attached to magic treasures to increase their power. Some high-level cultivators would capture the souls of powerful demons and ghosts and forcibly refine them into magic treasures to increase their power. Li Mu had never thought of doing this before. After all, no one was willing to be refined into a magic treasure. If the sword existed, the spirit would exist. If the sword died, the spirit would die. Most magic treasure spirits were forced. Madame Chu was willing to become a sword spirit. She was not forced. If there was a spirit sword spirit in Bai, she would be able to control Bai herself. This would be much more flexible than Li Mu controlling the sword himself. It would be equivalent to having a middle realm helper when facing an enemy. Not only that, her greatest use was to lend her mana to Li Mu at critical moments. As long as he held Bai, his mana could reach the 4th realm in a short period of time. Even if Madame Chu's mana was not as good as Suhi's, Li Mu could easily kill a 4th realm Abhijina. He could fight against a 5th realm Abhijina and a 6th realm Dongxian. Even if he could not win, he could at least protect himself. Li Mu could not resist such a temptation. He looked at Madame Chu and asked, "Have you thought it through?" Madame Chu's expression was resolute. She said, "With my strength alone, I will never be able to take revenge in this lifetime. I only hope that one day, I can see that villain Cui Ming die under this sword with my own eyes." Bai had already been recognized as Li Mu's master. As a sword spirit, she would also become Li Mu's servant. Madame Chu's only obsession was to seek revenge on Cui Ming. As for Suhi's revenge, Li Mu would definitely avenge her. Cui Ming was heartless and deserved to die. Whether it was for personal or public reasons, Li Mu could not let him go. He pulled Bai out and said, "Come in yourself." Madame Chu's soul turned into a puff of smoke and merged into Bai. Li Mu used the sword to cut his fingertip and drew a rune on the sword with his blood. He formed a seal with one hand and released a stream of spiritual energy. The blood rune on the sword was instantly absorbed into the sword. After doing all this, Li Mu closed the scabbard and said, "You stay inside first. I will help you heal later." Commandant Shen looked at him and said, "In the case of Spring Wind Pavilion, you hid for half a month and saved countless lives. Your contribution is the greatest. You can choose 2 items from the Xian room. Let Constable Zhao take you there." Li Mu had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Commandant Shen." After a while, Constable Zhao took Li Mu to the 2nd floor of the treasure pavilion. He sighed and said, "You've only been here for a month and you've already entered the treasure pavilion twice. Most of the constables here can't even enter once a year. However, I've never seen a constable as reckless as you. You've only just reached the soul condensation realm and you dare to fight a 3rd realm demonic ghost." When they reached the 2nd floor, Constable Zhao said, "I won't introduce the items here to you. You can see for yourself. You have 15 minutes. Remember to choose what you want in 15 minutes. Li Mu wanted the soul-beating whip. When using this whip to fight enemies, 3 souls would leave the body with 1 strike and the 2nd strike would dissipate the soul. Wan's spiritual eyes could control souls, so it was perfect for her. He looked at Constable Zhao and said, "Can I choose the soul-beating whip?" Constable Zhao looked at him and said, "Why are you still thinking about the Yaman's items?" Li Mu smiled and said, "Among these items, I only want the soul-beating whip." He was afraid that if he didn't give it to him this time, he would keep thinking about it in the future. Constable Zhao finally said helplessly, "That's not for me to decide. I'll help you ask the county lieutenant." Constable Zhao left the treasure pavilion and quickly returned. He said, "The county lieutenant has agreed. You can take the soul-beating whip, but you can only choose the soul-beating whip. If you give up the soul-beating whip, you can choose 2 items. As for which one to choose, you can think about it yourself." Li Mu said without hesitation, "I choose the soul-beating whip." Constable Zhao took out the soul-beating whip from his sleeve and handed it to him. He said, "You're very lucky. 2 of the Chujiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals were killed by you. That's why the county lieutenant made an exception for you. Continue to work hard. Perhaps in 2 years, you'll be on equal footing with me." Li Mu put away the soul-beating whip and said with a smile, "I just want to do something for the people. I've never thought about these things." Constable Zhao waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Li Mu looked around and said, "It's not worth it to exchange 2 for 1. Can I exchange a few more spiritual jades?" On the way home, Li Mu weighed the heavy spiritual jades in his sleeve and calculated his harvest this time. The Yamen had given him 30 taels of silver as a special fund. There were about a dozen taels left. Constable Zhao didn't ask, and Li Mu didn't mention it either. In addition to the silver, he had also obtained a soul-beating whip and 7 spiritual jades. Although they were of the lowest quality and couldn't be used by him and Lu Hanyan, they could be of great use to Wan and Xiaobai. In addition, his desire had been perfected. He could condense the 7th spirit at any time. His biggest gain was, of course, subduing a female ghost who was about to enter the spirit realm. This allowed his overall strength to improve by several levels. When he encountered high-level cultivators, he had enough strength to protect himself. After careful calculation, he realized that he had made a lot of money from this mission. When he returned home and walked into the courtyard, he saw Lu Hanyan sitting on a stone bench. She glanced at Li Mu and turned her head away. Obviously, she was still angry. Li Mu walked over and said with an apologetic smile, "I'm back." Lu Hanyan curled her lips and said, "Why are you back? Why don't you go to your Rongrong?" "She already said that she won't take your money," Li Mu said. "That's for the task." "I definitely won't go to that kind of place in the future." Lu Hanyan turned her head and still ignored him. Li Mu knew that she was angry not because he went to the brothel, but because he chose the cold and arrogant Rongrong the first time he went there. This would definitely make her connect something else. At that time, he had just chosen casually and didn't think too much. If he explained this matter directly, it would probably make things worse. Li Mu thought for a moment, and with a thought, he secretly pulled out Bai Yi's scabbard a little. A wisp of smoke floated out of Bai Yi and turned into a female ghost in red. She appeared beside Lu Hanyan. Lu Hanyan was sulking in her heart when she sensed something strange beside her. When she turned her head, she happened to meet a pale face. The woman in red had disheveled hair and a pale face. Her body was emitting a ghostly aura. Lu Hanyan pounced on Li Mu and hugged him tightly. She said in a trembling voice, "There's a ghost." Li Mu held her slender waist with one hand and patted her shoulder with the other. He comforted her. "Don't be afraid." Chapter 150. Li Mu hugged Lu Hanyan and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. She's the sword spirit I just accepted." Lu Hanyan finally realized something. She pushed Li Mu away and said angrily, "Are you doing this on purpose? I just want you to get to know each other. This is Mrs. Chu, Bai Yi's sword spirit." Li Mu introduced her to Lu Hanyan, then looked at Mrs. Chu and said, "This is Lu Hanyan. You can call her Lady Lu." Mrs. Chu bowed to Lu Hanyan and said, "Greetings, mistress." Lu Hanyan said, "Who's your mistress?" Li Mu took her hand and said, "Not now, but sooner or later you will be." He took out a piece of spiritual jade from his sleeve and handed it to her, saying, "This is for you." Lu Hanyan's attention was temporarily diverted. She asked, "What is this?" Li Mu said, "It's a spiritual jade. It contains spiritual power and can be directly guided out for cultivation. Take it first. There are a few more pieces. I'll give them to Wan and Xiaobai." Li Mu put Mrs. Chu back into the sword and left with an excuse from Lu Hanyan. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. Li Si was right. The devil was often hidden in the details. He still had a lot to learn from Li Si. If he had the chance to go to a brothel next time, he would definitely choose the sexy and beautiful first. He gave the soul-striking whip to Wan. Seeing the cute girl holding the whip, Li Mu felt that something was wrong. It seemed that Lu Hanyan was more suitable. However, he thought that if he gave the soul-striking whip to Lu Hanyan, she would probably have more chances to whip him in the future. It was safer to give it to Wan. After all, although Lu Hanyan had many advantages, she could never compare with Wan in terms of being well-behaved, obedient, and not being jealous. Of the 7 spirit jades, 1 was given to Lu Hanyan to taste, 3 were given to Wan, and 3 were given to Little White. Li Mu and Lu Hanyan both had physiques that could easily absorb spiritual energy, and they were also dual cultivating every night. In fact, there wasn't much of a difference whether they had spiritual jades or not. For Xiaobai and Wan, the spiritual energy contained in a spiritual jade was at least equivalent to a month of their cultivation. Wan was more playful. Every day, she would think more about what to eat in the morning, what to eat in the afternoon, what to eat in the evening, and what to eat in the middle of the night when she was hungry. Xiaobai was very hardworking in her cultivation. Every day after dinner, she would stay in Li Mu's room for a while until Lu Hanyan came over before leaving. For the rest of the time, she would cultivate in her small room. Her entire clan had died tragically at the hands of human cultivators. For a heavenly fox, this was a blood feud that she had to avenge. Li Mu had asked her who the cultivator who killed her clan was, but Xiaobai couldn't say. Before the old fox died, she had only projected the appearance of the cultivator in her mind. After leaving Xiaobai's room and walking past Lu Hanyan's room, Li Mu walked in and couldn't help but ask, "Why didn't you ask me more about Mrs. Chu?" With Lu Hanyan's personality, she would be jealous of anyone. She shouldn't be so calm. Lu Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and said, "I trust you." Li Mu was somewhat touched. Lu Hanyan still understood him. Although he admitted that sometimes he wanted all of them, he wouldn't be tempted by just any female ghost or female demon. Whether it was in terms of appearance or strength, Mrs. Chu was far inferior to Su He. Su He's cultivation was profound. She looked only 2 or 3 years older than Lu Hanyan. Mrs. Chu was old enough to be Lu Hanyan's mother. He returned to his room, pulled out the bai scabbard, and let Mrs. Chu out again. Her foundation had been damaged by Commandery Officer Shin, and her soul had almost dissipated. Although Li Mu had protected her at the critical moment, he had only prevented her from dissipating. Her soul was still very weak. Li Mu recited the Heart Sutra, and a ball of golden light enveloped Mrs. Chu. After 15 minutes, the golden light dissipated. When she reappeared, her body was still very condensed. When Li Mu healed the white snake, the mana in his body was still very weak. The current him was no longer the same as before. He could better display the effects of the Heart Sutra. Mrs. Chu's injuries were all healed. Li Mu took out a jade stone and said, "This is some soul power I collected. Refine it as soon as possible and advance to the soul realm." Li Mu had originally planned to use the soul force to condense his own soul, but right now, pushing Madame Chu's cultivation to the middle 3 stages was much more meaningful than condensing his own soul. After careful consideration, Li Mu decided to give this opportunity to her. Mrs. Chu bowed and said, "Thank you, master." She absorbed all the soul power in the jade stone and sent it into the sword again. Li Mu inserted the scabbard, put bai aside, and began to refine the desire in his body. Late at night, just after midnight, Li Mu, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. A yellow light appeared on the surface of his body, and then it completely disappeared into his body. Li Mu let out a long sigh of relief. After more than half a year, he had already condensed 6 of the 7 souls that he had lost. He only lacked the 5th soul, non-poison. Out of the 7 emotions, joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, disgust, and lust, Li Mu had already fulfilled all 6 of them except for love. So far, Li Mu had not even seen it from Lu Hanyan. This way, if his 7 souls were to be perfected, he could only hope to obtain great love. This kind of great love required the people to love and respect from the bottom of their hearts. Li Mu was a small official, not a parent official. It was even more difficult for him to obtain such great love. However, there was only 1 soul left in the 7 souls. Whether it was condensed or not, it didn't matter much. Mortals could still survive after losing 1 soul. He was a cultivator. The impact of losing 1 soul on his body was minimal. However, Li Mu still yearned for the 7 souls to be complete. Lu Hanyan didn't come over at night. Li Mu was too lazy to cultivate alone. He planned to completely relax and sleep. At this moment he felt a strong call from Bai's sword. Bai's sword had long been refined by Li Mu and was connected to his mind. Li Mu quickly realized that it was Mrs. Chu, who had turned into a sword spirit, calling him. Li Mu stretched out his hand and Bai's sword flew into his hand. He took out the scabbard. After a burst of fog, Mrs. Chu's figure appeared again. At this moment, there was no longer any ghost chi or resentment on her body. Standing in front of Li Mu, she looked like an ordinary weak woman. Other than Mrs. Chu, the only female ghost that could give Li Mu such a feeling was Su He. This meant that she had officially stepped into the soul realm and become a ghost cultivator in the middle realm. However, Mrs. Chu had just stepped into the middle realm. When Li Mu first met Su He, she had already been in the fourth realm for a long time. She was much stronger than the current Mrs. Chu. Li Mu looked at her and said, "Congratulations on successfully entering the soul realm." Mrs. Chu said gratefully, "If it weren't for Master, my soul would have dissipated long ago." A fourth realm ghost cultivator was already considered an expert. It was rare to see one. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon had more than 10 of them under his command. If the county government hadn't noticed, Mrs. Chu would have become his 17th soul realm ghost general. Li Mu asked, "Does Chu Jiang of Gojoseon really have any ulterior motives in the North County all these years?" Mrs. Chu shook her head and said, "I don't know. I only know that Chu Jiang of Gojoseon has been searching for and nurturing soul realm ghost cultivators. Many of his ghost generals used to be wandering ghosts. After they were taken in by him, if they couldn't advance to the soul realm within the time he set, they would have to sacrifice their soul power to other ghost generals. A peak 5th realm Chu Jiang of Gojoseon and more than 10 4th realm ghost generals could already be considered an extremely huge force. If it weren't for the ancestral court of Fu Lu School, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's power would only be higher than the North County's officials. Although the ancestral court of Fu Lu School was powerful, other than sending low-level disciples to cultivate in the secular world, it wouldn't interfere too much in the secular world. Unless it was a giant of the demonic path like Master Qianhuan, who exceeded the North County's ability to deal with, it would attract the super experts of the Fu Lu School. A small character like Chu Jiang of Gojoseon couldn't attract the attention of the experts of the ancestral court. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon, who kept causing trouble in the North County, was the biggest threat to the North County. There should be many opportunities to deal with him in the future. Although the current Li Mu was still not a match for Chu Jiang of Gojoseon, he wasn't afraid of him. He looked at Madame Chu and said, "Enter the sword and try to transmit your spiritual power to me through Bai." After a moment, feeling the surging spiritual power in his body that was about to overflow, Li Mu's heart was filled with pride. Although Madame Chu's strength was far from Su He's, she was still at the fourth realm. She had already recognized Li Mu as her master and was willing to become Bai's sword spirit. With the connection between the two, Li Mu could borrow her spiritual power without being possessed. As long as Bai was in his hands, he could enter the fourth realm at any time and use all kinds of Dao techniques to display the strength of the fifth realm. Of course, other people's power was ultimately other people's. He couldn't slack off on his own cultivation. When he reached the middle realm with his own strength, he would truly have the capital to establish himself in this world where demonic ghosts ran rampant and countless experts. Chapter 151. Li Mu thought that his cultivation speed was already fast enough, but when he saw Li Si again, he found that his 7 souls had all been refined. There was no difficulty in refining the soul and condensing the soul. As long as one had enough courage and soul power, it was not difficult to cross 2 realms in half a month. However, this required a large amount of resources. For an ordinary person without any background to collect these resources, it was much more difficult than cultivating step by step. However, Li Mu did not envy him. While Li Si's cultivation was rapidly increasing, the weight on his body was not light. There was no free lunch in the world. If one wanted to gain something, they had to lose something else. He gained money, power, and women, but lost his freedom. However, Li Si did not seem to care about this. Li Mu often saw him and Chen Miao Miao appearing together. The smile on his face was much more than before, as if he was a different person. It seemed that he had really found his love. Speaking of love, Li Mu was a little confused. Of the 7 emotions, the only one he lacked was love. However, he had never felt this kind of feeling from anyone until now. Even Lu Hanyan was no exception. Li Mu even suspected that she did not actually like him, but simply lusted after his body. He could not figure out this question and planned to ask Li Si, "What is love?" Li Si leaned back in his chair and shook his head at Li Mu. "This question is very profound and there is more than one answer. You need to discover it yourself. Li Mu asked, is it not love when two people who like each other are together? Li Si patted his shoulder and said meaningfully, like is like, love is love. Like is possession. Love is giving. Like is unbridled and willful. Love is restraint and tolerance. After you and Lady Lu get married and spend a few years together, you will naturally understand. Li Mu understood Li Si's meaning. At first sight, there is liking, but after a long time, there will be love. If Lu Hanyan wasn't so beautiful, didn't have such a great figure, wasn't the shopkeeper of the Yunyan Pavilion, didn't have a pure Yin body, and wasn't so multi-talented, Li Mu would still like her. Then it would be true love. Right now, the relationship between the two of them was merely liking each other. Love would only develop after a long period of time. Love wasn't something that could be created overnight. He still needed to cultivate feelings with her. With nothing to do in the yamen, Li Mu used the excuse of patrolling to go to Yunyan Pavilion. There were only 2 branches of the Yunyan Pavilion in the county city. One was a bookstore, and the other was a tea house where storytelling was the main business. With the help of the Su family, the 2 branches opened smoothly without any obstacles. Although business was temporarily slow, the bookstore would soon become popular with a few best-selling books such as Strange Stories from a Strange Story and Confucius Does Not Speak in Yangqiu County. On the other hand, business in the tea house was very average. Without good stories and a storyteller with great storytelling skills, very few people would specially come here to drink tea. Li Mu went to the bookstore first. Zhang Shan told him that Lu Hanyan was in the tea house. Li Mu walked into the tea house and saw that there were only a few guests sitting in the tea house. The storyteller on the stage wasn't in a very good mood. Lu Hanyan sat in a corner, frowning in deep thought. Li Mu walked over and sat beside her. Lu Hanyan instinctively moved to the side. When she turned her head and saw that it was Li Mu, she moved her butt back. The tea house was very quiet. She asked in a small voice, "Why are you here?" Li Mu held her hand and said, "I missed you." Lu Hanyan's face was glowing. She allowed Li Mu to hold her hand. She looked at the storyteller on the stage and said, "Business in the prefecture capital is really difficult. The tea house is losing money every day. Very few of the guests who came to the tea house actually came to drink tea. Most of them came to listen to some novel stories to pass the time." Before the Yunyan Pavilion moved in, the market of the tea houses in the prefecture capital had already been divided up by a few families. It was not easy to snatch a fixed source of customers from them. Li Mu smiled and said, "At the crucial moment, you still have to rely on me, right?" In Yangqiu County, if it weren't for Li Mu, the Yunyan Pavilion wouldn't have been so popular. The guests in the tea house were also exchanged for by Li Mu using one unusual story after another, one exciting chapter after another, risking his life. Others thought that he had hooked up with Lu Hanyan, but few people knew that he was the man behind Lu Hanyan. Lu Hanyan gently pinched his waist and said, "You're still making sarcastic remarks. Hurry up and think of a solution. If this goes on, the tea house will close. When that time comes, I won't be able to support you." In the tea house, the few guests were somewhat dispirited. In this newly opened tea house, the taste of the tea was acceptable, but the storyteller's story was dull. 2 people finished their tea and directly left. When the others were about to finish their tea and leave, they saw the storyteller on the stage walk down. A waiter carried a screen onto the stage. Not long after, a young voice began to speak from behind the screen. "A water ghost, a young man, an old man who grows grapes. Seems a little interesting." The young man's story was quite interesting. A guest had already stood up and was about to leave. After standing and listening for a while, he sat down again and poured a pot of tea. When Li Mu was in Yangqiu County, he had already figured out that those who liked to listen to stories, songs, and operas had their own cliques. Good wine fears no dark alley. As long as there were good stories, songs, and operas that were approved by a few guests, the Yunyan Pavilion's reputation would be spread by word of mouth in a few days. It only took 5 days for the tea house branches in the county city to fill up more than half of the seats during the peak period from the number of guests that could be counted with one hand. On this day, the tea house was even more crowded. Because the storyteller had told a story in the past 2 days, and it had reached the most exciting part. After everyone was seated, the young storyteller behind the screen began slowly. Last time, Zhang Luer failed to get Granny Kai to betroth Do Yi to him, so he put poison in the soup and intended to kill Granny Kai. As a result, her father was poisoned to death by mistake. Instead, Zhang Luer falsely accused Do. That muddle-headed county magistrate accepted Zhang Luer's bribe and turned the case into an unjust one. He intended to execute Do. This play, Do Yi's injustice, tugged at the heartstrings of many guests. As people at the bottom of society, they could empathize with Do Yi's experience. They also urgently hoped that someone could uphold justice for her and punish evil. Those who do good suffer poverty and have a shorter life, while those who do evil enjoy wealth and have a longer life. Heaven and earth, you are afraid of the strong and bully the weak, but it turns out that you are pushing the boat with the current. Heaven and earth, you can't tell good from bad. Heaven and earth, you are wrong to judge the virtuous and foolish. Before Do Yi died, she made 3 vows: blood staining the white cloth, heavy snow falling from the sky, and drought for 3 years. Her cry of grief and indignation moved heaven. Suddenly, the sky above the execution ground was covered with dark clouds, and the sky darkened. The scorching sun in June disappeared, and snowflakes fell from the sky. Frightened, the county magistrate ordered the executioners to carry out the execution immediately. Wherever the saber passed, the head fell to the ground. Do Yi's hot blood sprayed directly onto the white cloth hanging high in the air, and not a single drop fell to the ground. For the next 3 years, there was no rain in Shanyang. When Li Mu walked out from the backstage, the guests sitting below the stage were still sitting there in a daze. None of them left. This time, he did not suddenly stop at the most exciting part of the story. The spirit of the concealed arrow had been condensed, and the anger of these people did not have as much effect on him as before. Li Mu stood at the entrance of the tea house, and did not go out because it was raining outside. When he was telling the story on the stage, there was a sudden burst of thunder outside, and it started to rain heavily. At this moment, the rain was much lighter. Under the eaves of the shops on the street, there were pedestrians taking shelter from the rain. There were also passers-by who did not have time to escape, and were completely drenched, cursing as they walked on the street. In the corner of the roof of the tea house, there were 2 figures curled up. One was a skinny old man, and the other was a 17 or 18-year-old girl. Both of them were dressed in rags, and the girl was holding a broken bowl in her hand. They should be beggars who were temporarily taking shelter from the rain. It seemed that they disliked them for being too dirty, and the passers-by who were taking shelter from the rain were not willing to get too close to them. Li Mu took out a piece of broken silver and put it in the bowl. The 2 hurriedly thanked him. 2 days ago, the weather had turned cold, and the 2 were drenched in the rain. Li Mu saw them curled up in the corner, shivering. He walked in again, took a pot of hot tea and 2 bowls, and handed them to them. He said, "Drink a cup of tea to warm up. It's free." The girl was stunned. She had been hiding outside and eavesdropping, and the kind man in front of her had the same voice as the storyteller. She quickly reacted and knelt down to kowtow to him. She said, "Thank you, benefactor." "Thank you, benefactor." Li Mu waved his hand, held up the umbrella, and walked to the county government. Several patrolling constables walked into the government office awkwardly and muttered, "Why did it rain so suddenly?" There was no sign at all. Outside the county city, several women who were washing clothes by the stream were suddenly drenched by the heavy rain. Their clothes became translucent, faintly revealing their bloated figures. A shabby Daoist priest in rags was among them. He was talking and laughing with them, and his eyes were looking around. The women did not avoid him. From time to time, they would pull their clothes and tease him. The old Daoist priest looked at it for a while and felt bored. It was still raining. He looked up at the gloomy sky, counted with his fingers, and said in surprise, "My dear mother, this rain is not right." Chapter 152. It shouldn't be raining today. This rain actually contains the power of heaven and earth. Who caused it? Damn it, this North County is really full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Looks like I'll have to stay here for a few more days to observe. Lao Dao pinched the sky and muttered to himself. A woman said, "Old pervert, what are you muttering about?" Lao Dao collected his thoughts and smiled. "Are you going to buy the talisman I mentioned just now? It's very effective. Everyone who's used it says it's good." Li Mu walked into the county office. Not long after, Constable Zhao came to the office. "There's something wrong with this rain." He wiped the rainwater off his face and said, "The county governor said that it shouldn't be raining these few days. Something must have happened." Li Mu asked suspiciously, "What kind of matter can affect the heavens and rain?" Constable Zhao said, "There are many. Cultivators who condense their spirits can summon the wind and fog. Cultivators who condense their spirits can even pray for the sun and rain. Every time a new Dao technique or abhijna is born, there will be a heavenly vision." Li Mu was shocked. Only then did he realize a problem. The heaven and earth of this world was not the sky and earth that he saw. A cultivator's Dao oath was made to heaven and earth. If they violated it, they would be punished by heaven. In other words, heaven was watching what people did. Just now, he used Daoist's story to scold the heaven and earth for bullying the weak and fearing the strong. It couldn't be that this rain was because of this, right? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. It seemed that the time when the rain was the heaviest was when he talked about Daoist's vow. Li Mu immediately made up his mind. That line had to be changed. It was enough to scold the corrupt officials. It was best not to involve heaven and earth in everything. If heaven was unhappy with him and struck down lightning, it would be too late for him to regret. Fortunately, the rain didn't last long. Within a quarter of an hour after Li Mu returned to the county yamen, the sky cleared up again. The sky was blue and there wasn't even a cloud in sight. If it weren't for the wet puddles on the ground, no one would have thought that it had just rained. When Constable Zhao left the watchroom, he instructed Li Mu, "You stay here and don't leave the yamen. In a while, everyone will follow the county governor to pay respects to the national temple." Every county in the Great Zhou dynasty had a state temple. Li Mu had been to Yangqiu County once, but the state temple in Yangqiu County could not be compared to the one in the county capital. This was a large hall that occupied a large area. Although it only had one floor, it was at least 30 feet tall. The first thing that came into sight when they walked into the national temple were 3 towering statues. The moment they stepped into the national temple, they would have the urge to kneel down and worship them. There were hundreds of prayer mats in the hall, and the people of the North County were kneeling on them. The people lined up and walked in from the entrance. After paying their respects, they walked out from the exit. Li Mu noticed that almost 90% of the people would produce a bit of psychokinesis in their bodies when they paid their respects to the 3 statues. The psychokinesis would be absorbed by the 3 statues. The national temple was similar to temples and Daoist temples. As long as people paid their respects sincerely, psychokinesis would be produced. Those who didn't produce psychokinesis would definitely be dissatisfied with the imperial court or the local government. This was unavoidable. Even the national temple couldn't force the people to worship it. To a certain extent, the proportion of people who produced psychokinesis represented the people's sentiment in the imperial court. When the people of an area paid their respects to the national temple, the proportion of people who produced psychokinesis was an important indicator to assess the achievements of the local officials. If the law and order of a place was good and the people lived and worked in peace, they would naturally have confidence in the imperial court. However, if the local officials were merciless and treated the people badly, causing them to complain and living in poverty, they wouldn't produce much psychokinesis. The people of the county government paid their respects to the national temple firstly to pay their respects and secondly to observe the people's sentiment. From the situation at the scene, only a small number of people didn't produce psychokinesis. This also meant that the people trusted the North County government very much. Li Mu looked at the 3 statues in the hall and asked, "Who are these 3 people?" Constable Zhao looked at him and asked, "Have you never been here before?" Li Mu shook his head. "No." Constable Zhao said in surprise, "Even if you haven't been here before, you should have seen the portraits of Emperor Taizu, Wuzong, and Emperor Wen, right? After Constable Zhao's reminder, Li Mu finally found information about the 3 statues in his mind. Emperor Taizu was the founding emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty. He conquered the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty and divided it into 36 counties. During Emperor Wuzong's reign, he used iron and blood to sweep away the turmoil in the country and intimidate the neighboring countries so that they didn't dare to invade. After Wuzong's reign, the power of the Great Zhou dynasty grew rapidly and deterred everyone. The last Emperor Wen, who ruled for 50 years, worked hard to govern the country. He purged the imperial court, and the people of the 36 counties of the Great Zhou dynasty were at peace. His famous rule of Emperor Wen had been influential to this day. These 3 were all emperors with outstanding contributions in the history of the Great Zhou dynasty. They were qualified to have their statues erected in the national temple and receive the worship of the people of the Great Zhou dynasty. A constable looked at the statues of the 3 emperors and couldn't help but feel admiration. Then, a trace of unwillingness appeared on his face and he said in a low voice, "Emperor Taizu, Wuzong, Emperor Wen, what kind of heroes are they? The Shao dynasty has lasted for hundreds of years, but in the end, it was stolen by a woman with a different surname. Shut up." Constable Zhao slapped him hard on the head and said, "You dare to say anything? If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." Li Mu raised his head and looked at the statues of the 3 emperors. He didn't feel anything special in his heart. The current empress was the first empress since the establishment of the Great Zhou dynasty. In the hearts of the people of the Great Zhou dynasty, this was tantamount to going against the moral principles. It was still unacceptable to them. However, to Li Mu, it was not unprecedented for a woman to be an empress. It was also not something that was unacceptable. He followed the prefectural governor and paid his respects to the statues of the 3 emperors in a not-so-sincere manner. After returning to the yamen, he learned about the new task from Constable Zhao. In the process of paying their respects to the national temple, the people in a certain area did not have any psychokinesis. After investigating, the yamen found that these people were all from Yang County. They learned from these people that a plague had broken out in a few villages in Yang County. However, the Yang County government did nothing and allowed the plague to spread, causing the people of Yang County to panic. Yang County and Yu County happened to be the 2 counties that Constable Zhao was in charge of. Early the next morning, he would bring a few people to Yang County to investigate the situation. Li Mu would also go with them. Although Yang County was not far from the prefectural capital, considering that it would take time to complete the task, they might not be able to make it back by tomorrow night. During dinner, Li Mu told Yu Hanyun about the business trip tomorrow. After dinner, she helped Li Mu pack a small bag and said, "I don't know how long it will take for you to come back. I've packed 2 sets of clothes for you to change into. When the time comes, just bring back the dirty clothes you changed into. Be careful outside." Li Mu was not worried about his own safety at all. With Bai Yi in hand, unless King Chujiang personally came, normal demonic ghosts and heretical cultivation would not pose much of a threat to him. However, he was still worried about them. Although he had already taught Yu Hanyun the thunder technique and weapon manipulation, she lacked experience in fighting enemies. If she encountered danger, she might not be able to use her full strength. However, nothing should happen in the prefectural capital. Li Mu had already instructed Li Si to keep an eye on them. He also told Little White to stay in her room and not run around. She was now at the crucial moment of her transformation. The demonic qi in her body was chaotic. Li Mu had pasted aura concealment talismans outside her room. Every night, he would use Buddhist mana to help her tidy up her body so that her demonic qi could be suppressed. Because of this, he had not dual cultivated with Yu Hanyun for a few days. In the morning, Li Mu opened his eyes and sat up in bed. Yesterday, he had helped Little White suppress her demonic qi until late at night. His mana was almost exhausted. He did not cultivate but went straight to bed with his clothes on. Li Mu was about to get out of bed when his right hand accidentally touched a smooth body. Li Mu's first thought was that Yu Hanyun had done something to him while he was asleep last night. However, when he looked down, he realized that his clothes were still intact. It was exactly the same as before he went to bed last night. He slowly turned his head and saw an unfamiliar girl lying on his bed without a stitch of clothing. The girl was about 18 or 19 years old. She had a head of black hair and a beautiful face. Even with her eyes closed, her entire body was filled with charm. Li Mu sat on the bed and his mind went blank. Why aren't you up yet? Don't you still have to go to Yang County? Yu Hanyun walked to the door and opened it with her manna. When she saw the scene on the bed, she was stunned. Chapter 153. Li Mu looked at the unfamiliar girl on the bed and then looked at Lu Hanyan, who was standing at the door with tears in her eyes. His lips moved as he wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to say. He had been caught red-handed in bed. What else could he explain? Although even Li Mu himself didn't know why this young girl would appear on his bed, he didn't know. Lu Hanyan didn't say anything. She wiped her tears and turned to run away. Chasing after his future wife was more important. Li Mu didn't care about what was going on with the girl on the bed. He quickly chased after her without even wearing shoes. As soon as Lu Hanyan ran into the yard, Li Mu caught up with her and hugged her from behind. Li Mu hugged her tightly and hurriedly said, "Don't be angry. Let me explain." Lu Hanyan didn't struggle. 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. She choked and said, "I saw it with my own eyes. What else do you have to explain? Isn't it enough for you to do whatever you want outside? You actually brought her home," Li Mu said with a wry smile. "I don't know who she is. I saw her when I opened my eyes this morning. Do you believe what you're saying?" Li Mu didn't know how to explain. Suddenly, a vague voice came from behind him. The girl walked out of the room naked and barefoot. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at Li Mu and Lu Hanyan. She asked in confusion, "Benefactor, Sister Lu, what are you doing?" Hearing this extremely familiar voice, Li Mu turned around and was stunned. He said in surprise, "Xiao Bai?" The next moment, his vision went black. Lu Hanyan had covered his eyes from behind. Lu Hanyan's face turned red. She said angrily, "Xiao Bai, quickly go into the room." The girl looked at her and asked in confusion, "Why?" Lu Hanyan said with a red face, "Look down." The girl lowered her head to take a look. After a brief moment of shock, she let out a cry of surprise and her figure instantly disappeared on the spot. A moment later, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan stood in the room, looking at the girl who had wrapped herself in a blanket. They murmured, How did you transform?" I don't know either." The girl's face was bright red as she said, Last night, I just wanted to give it a try and then fell asleep. When I woke up, I became like this." Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and said, "Do you believe me this time?" Lu Hanyan was a little ashamed and said, "I'll help her find some clothes." After Xiao Bai transformed, although she wasn't as tall as Li Qing, she was still half a head taller than Wanwan. Wanwan's clothes didn't fit her, so she could only make do with Lu Hanyan's clothes. In Lu Hanyan's room, she stood behind Xiao Bai, helping her comb her hair while looking at the girl's face in the bronze mirror. Even though she was very confident in her appearance, when she saw the girl in front of her, she couldn't help but feel ashamed. The girl in front of her was really the most beautiful girl she had ever seen. Even as a girl, when she saw her naked body, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Lil. Her lips moved. She suddenly realized that when she was a little fox in the past, she didn't feel anything when he called her Lil White. But now, when he called her Lil White again, he felt a little weird. She secretly looked at her again and asked, "Xiao Bai, what's your name? We can't keep calling you Xiao Bai in the future, right?" The girl smiled and said, "My surname is Su. Big Sister Lu can just call me Xiao Bai in the future." Lu Hanyan helped her comb her hair and couldn't help but say, "Xiao Bai is really beautiful." Xiao Bai said shyly, "Big Sister Lu is the beautiful one." Li Mu stood at the door and said, "You guys stay at home. I'm leaving." Even though Xiao Bai's transformation was a happy event, Li Mu was going to Yang County today. He couldn't let Constable Zhao and the others wait for him. Lu Hanyan put down the comb and said, "Xiao Bai, sit for a while and stay at home. I'll send him out." Xiao Bai nodded obediently. Li Mu walked into the courtyard and said, "It's only a few steps from here to the yamen. You don't have to send me off." Lu Hanyan walked over and helped him tidy up his collar. She asked, "Xiaobai has transformed. Are you very happy?" Li Mu said with lingering fear, "What's there to be happy about? I was almost scared to death by her, and also by you," Lu Hanyan said bitterly. "She was born so beautiful and wholeheartedly wanted to repay your kindness by giving herself to you." Li Mu glanced at her and said, "Aren't you beautiful? Have some confidence in yourself." Lu Hanyan lowered her head and said, "I know I'm not as beautiful as Xiaobai. She's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen." Li Mu stretched out his arms and pulled her into his embrace. He said, "In my eyes, you're the most beautiful. No matter who you compare yourself to, you're always the most beautiful. Don't ever doubt this." Lu Hanyan made a soft sound of acknowledgement. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him gently on the cheek. She said, "Come back soon. We'll wait for you at home." Li Mu returned her kiss before leaving the house and hurrying towards the yamen. Xiaobai's sudden transformation had caught him off guard and almost caused Lu Hanyan to misunderstand. Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous and he managed to get through it safely. The only pity was that after Xiaobai transformed, he couldn't always hold her in his arms and play with her like a cat. Not long after Li Mu left, Wan came running in with a lunchbox in her hand. The lunchbox contained the breakfast she had bought. When she saw the unfamiliar girl in the courtyard, she was stunned and asked in confusion, "Miss, who are you looking for?" Li Mu arrived late at the yamen's entrance. When he saw Constable Zhao and the others standing at the yamen's entrance, he hurriedly said, "Sorry, I was delayed by some matters." The constables behind Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu with envy. Constable Zhao pointed at Li Mu's face and shook his head. He said, "I really envy you young people." Li Mu realized something and reached out to wipe the lipstick mark on his face. He said awkwardly, "It's getting late. Let's get going." Other than Li Mu, Constable Zhao had brought 4 other people with him to Yang County. One of them was the determined young man named Lin Yu who had passed the 3 tests with Li Mu and Li Si that day. The other 3 were old men from the yamen. With the speed of a spirit-condensing realm cultivator using a spirit traveling talisman, it would take more than 4 hours to travel from Yang County to the county capital. Everyone had to rest along the way. By the time they reached Yang County, it was already past noon. After reaching Yang County, they didn't go to the yamen. Instead, they went directly to the village where the plague had spread. Cultivators who had refined the 7 spirits were immune to all diseases and evils. Although it was an exaggeration, they were immune to more than 99% of the diseases of mortals. The 6 of them arrived at the village entrance and knocked on a villager's door. Just as they were about to ask about the situation in the village, the villager suddenly fell to the ground unconscious. One of the constables touched his forehead and exclaimed, "It's so hot." Constable Zhao said, "Help him in first." The 2 of them helped the villager into the house. Constable Zhao asked the villager's wife to get a bowl of water and turned a piece of fulu into talisman water. He pinched the villager's mouth and poured the talisman water into his stomach. The villager's complexion improved after the talisman water entered his stomach, but he still didn't wake up. Constable Zhao frowned and said, "How can it be useless?" Li Mu walked forward and said, "Let me try." Although fulu often had mysterious powers, it wasn't omnipotent. Disease-dispelling talismans could cure common diseases such as headaches and fever, colds and diarrhea. However, there were many diseases that couldn't be cured. His hand glowed with a golden light. Under the astonished gazes of Constable Zhao and the others, the golden light was transferred into the villager's body. The villager's pale face gradually turned rosy, and his breathing calmed down. One of the constables touched his forehead again and exclaimed, "It's not hot anymore." Li Mu heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Heart Sutra couldn't directly increase his strength, it was very useful in treating illnesses and saving people. Constable Zhao looked at the villager and muttered, "What kind of plague is it that even the disease-dispelling talisman doesn't work?" The young man named Lin Yu suddenly stretched out his hand and looked at the villager's eyelids and tongue. Finally, he leaned on the villager's chest and listened. His expression gradually became serious and he said, "It's the plague." Chapter 154. Plague. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Constable Zhao's heart skipped a beat. His face immediately darkened. "Are you sure?" Li Mu could clearly feel Constable Zhao's nervousness and knew why he was so nervous. Cultivators had created all kinds of supernatural powers and Fulu pills that could cure hundreds of diseases and save thousands of lives. However, they were not omnipotent. Although the cultivators themselves would not contract certain human diseases such as the plague, they were powerless when they encountered them. They could only watch as the patient's illnesses worsened and they died. In the past, the imperial court's method of dealing with the plague was to completely seal off the infected areas. Once all the infected people died, the plague would naturally stop spreading. Lin Yu nodded solemnly and said, "I'm sure it's the plague. I used to practice medicine with my master and encountered it before." Constable Zhao hurriedly asked, "Is there a way to save it?" Lin Yu shook his head and said, "Fulu is useless for this disease. Whether the infected can survive depends on God's will. Unless you encounter a medical expert or use a heaven-grade Fulu to help them reconstruct their bodies." Li Mu did not expect the plague to be so troublesome. The heaven-grade Fulu had the power of creation. When Wu Bo's heart was crushed by senior brother Qin, he could also regenerate his body. Naturally, it was not a problem for him to treat and save people. The problem was that it was unrealistic to have a heaven-grade Fulu for each of the infected people in Yang County. It was impossible to even get one, let alone one. Since the rise of Buddhism, schools of cultivation such as medicine, painting, and music gradually declined. Now, even preserving their orthodoxy was a problem. It was not easy to encounter a plague. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and asked nervously, "Can you save them?" Li Mu had full confidence in the Buddhist light of the Heart Sutra. He said, "I'll try my best. The plan now is to isolate the villages where the epidemic happened as soon as possible. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Then, gather the sick people together and try to prevent more people from being infected." Lin Yu nodded repeatedly and said, "Big Brother Li, you're right. Apart from that, we must exterminate the rats as soon as possible to prevent the plague from spreading further." Constable Zhao first ordered a bailiff to return to the county yamen to report the situation. Then, he asked someone to find the village chief and block the roads at the entrance and end of the village, forbidding anyone from entering or leaving. Then, he began to investigate the epidemic situation in the village. The other two constables took on the responsibility of exterminating the rats. Lin Yu asked them to dig a big pit in the village. Then, they filled the pit with water and poured an unknown powder into it. After the powder was mixed in, it emitted a faint fragrance. Soon, the crowd heard the sound of footsteps. Gray or black rats appeared from all corners of the village and jumped into the puddles one after another. After jumping into the puddle, they did not struggle and floated quietly on the surface of the water. After a while, the puddle was full of floating rats, and there were no more rats around. One of the bailiffs threw out a Fulu, and the puddle was set ablaze. All the rat corpses were incinerated. In order to completely eradicate the plague, they had to cut off the source of the plague. After a few people investigated, they found that the infection in the village was not serious. Only 10 villagers were infected. Constable Zhao gathered the 10 people together. Lin Yu went out once and found some herbs. He boiled them into a pot and distributed the decoction to the villagers who were not infected. Li Mu did not stay idle either. After the 10 people were cleansed by his light of Buddha, their symptoms gradually disappeared. Li Mu obtained a lot of merit from them, but he also used up a lot of his mana. This made him envious of Buddhism, Taoism, and the imperial family. If he wanted to obtain merit or psychokinesis, he had to do it himself. He used up his mana to treat the sick and heal the wounded. They only had to build a Taoist palace, a temple, a national temple, and erect a few statues or stone tablets to obtain the psychokinesis and merit from the people. In the Great Zhou, only Buddhism, Taoism, and the imperial court had such special privileges. If other people or forces dared to build temples privately, accept the worship of the people, and absorb the merit and psychokinesis, they would be destroyed as heretical cultivation. Therefore, he could only envy them in his heart. After treating these people, Li Mu sat on the side to rest. Perhaps they had discovered it early, but no one in this village had died of the disease. In order not to delay, they had to go to the next village in 15 minutes. Lin Yu took advantage of the free time to come over and asked, "Brother Li, are you a dual cultivator of Buddhism and Taoism?" Li Mu also just found out that this young man was a descendant of the school of medicine. He nodded at him and did not deny it. Lin Yu chatted with Li Mu for a while, mainly out of curiosity about his light of Buddha. After asking Li Mu a few questions, he stopped talking and sat quietly in the corner. He took out a cloth bag from his sleeve. When he opened the cloth bag, Li Mu saw that there were dozens of silver needles of different lengths and thicknesses in the bag. Lin Yu took out a silver needle and inserted his mana into it. He then inserted the needle into an acupuncture point on his wrist. Soon, he had inserted more than 10 silver needles into his body. There were all kinds of cultivation methods in this world, not just Buddhism and Taoism. It was normal for there to be some that he had not seen before. After arranging everything in this village, they did not delay and immediately rushed to the next village. When they arrived at the entrance of the village, they saw the villagers in a confrontation with more than 10 constables. The constables all used black cloth to cover their noses and mouths. They held weapons in their hands and pointed at the villagers from afar. They shouted, "Your village has been infected with the plague. We are under the orders of the county magistrate to seal this village. No one is allowed to enter or leave." A group of people gathered at the entrance of the village, their faces filled with grief and anger. The leader of the group, an old man, said in a trembling voice, "There are dozens of families in the village. You don't care about the sick and only sealed the village. You are forcing the villagers to die." The constables said loudly, "The county magistrate said that sacrificing your village in exchange for the safety of the entire county is worth it. Do you want to implicate the county, or even the entire North County?" "Bastard!" Constable Zhao sent the constable flying with a kick. He said angrily, "Is this how you treat the people?" The constable got up from the ground and said angrily, "Who are you? How dare you interfere with our work? Are you blind?" Behind Constable Zhao, an old constable from the county government kicked him to the ground again and said, "Get lost. You have no right to speak here. Go and call your lord here." The constable was about to curse again, but when he saw their clothes, he quickly swallowed the curse words that were about to come out of his mouth. The Lord could afford to offend the people from the county government, but he, a lowly constable, could not. After getting up from the ground, he hurriedly led the group away. Constable Zhao walked to the entrance of the village and said to the old man, "We are constables from the county government. We are here specifically for this plague. Old man, how is the situation in the village?" Hearing that the county government had arrived, the villagers hurriedly welcomed them into the village. When they were in the previous village, they had already discussed a series of procedures to control the epidemic. First of all, in order to prevent the epidemic from spreading, the village had to be sealed. However, the infected people could not be ignored. They had to be quarantined and treated those who were already infected. They also had to prevent new infected people from appearing. The division of labor was clear. Lin Yu and the others were in charge of exterminating the rats, while Li Mu was in charge of saving people. Fortunately, no one had died in this village so far. This should be great news. According to Lin Yu, the plague was just a general term for the plague spread by rats. There were more than 10 types of the plague that had been discovered. Each type had a different fatality rate, different harm to the human body, and different medicines were used to treat it. For this type of plague, none of the infected people had died. This meant that its harm was not that great. At least, the patients would not die in a short period of time. This gave them enough time to treat them. Li Mu had just saved 10 people. He had used up some of his mana and had not fully recovered yet. There were more infected people in this village, a total of 26. Li Mu saved another 10 people and felt that his mana was overdrawn. When he stood up, his body swayed and he almost fell. Constable Zhao quickly supported him and said, "You should rest for a while. This time, we are relying on you." Li Mu also wanted to rest. However, from the moment he saved the first person, an endless stream of virtuous thought power gushed out from these patients, from their relatives, and from the people of this village. The mana in Li Mu's body was circulating faster than it had ever been. This was a real and miraculous power that could increase the speed of cultivation. Once he started, he did not want to stop. Li Mu gritted his teeth and said firmly, "Help me up. I can still save." Chapter 155. Li Mu forced himself to save a few more people. Finally, he could not squeeze out a single drop of mana. Constable Zhao helped him sit down and handed him a piece of spiritual jade. The rest of the patients have mild symptoms. Their lives will not be in danger for the time being. You should recover your mana first. It won't be too late to save them later. Li Mu held the spiritual jade in his hand and meditated. At the same time, he was observing the psyche power in his body. This power was not like soul power and charisma, which could be refined directly by him. Instead, it was hidden in his body. After he rested for a while, a group of people walked in from outside the village. The village had been completely sealed off. An old official from the county government stood at the entrance of the village and said sternly, "Halt." A stout man in official robes looked at him and said, "I am the county magistrate of Yang County. Is Constable Zhao here?" Constable Zhao walked out and saluted the stout man. "Greetings, County Magistrate Chen." County Magistrate Chen smiled and said, "There is no need to trouble Constable Zhao to come here personally for such a small matter." Constable Zhao said coldly, "If I didn't come here personally, County Magistrate Chen would have sealed off all the people in the village, wouldn't he?" County Magistrate Chen shook his head and said, "No one wanted such a thing to happen. Once the plague spreads, it will cause an even greater disaster. As a county magistrate, 100 or so lives are nothing compared to 1,000 or 10,000 lives. I have to look at the big picture. I believe that even the imperial court can understand my actions." Constable Zhao did not say much. Strictly speaking, County Magistrate Chen did not do anything wrong in this matter. However, as long as the local magistrate still had a conscience, he would not treat the lives of 100 or so people under his jurisdiction as a cold number. In his eyes, there was probably only political achievement. Constable Zhao said calmly, "The epidemic in this village has been controlled. There is still a way to save the plague. The county government will deal with the epidemic in Yang County. You don't have to worry about it anymore." County Magistrate Chen smiled and said, "That would be for the best. If Constable Zhao needs any help, just let me know." With that, he left with the group of Yamen runners. The villagers knelt on the ground and kowtowed a few times to Li Mu and the others. The village chief breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you for saving our lives. Otherwise, the county magistrate would really let all of us die." Li Mu recovered his magic power and continued to save people. In the process of saving people, he learned that the county magistrate of Yang County did not have a good reputation in the county. The citizens were quite critical of him. Arrestor Zhao sighed and said, "It's really hard for the people of Yang County to have such a parental official." Li Mu had just heard that County Magistrate Chen was inactive and lazy in his administration. He had his ways of exploiting the people and had even disregarded human lives. As he used Buddha's light to save people, he asked, "Isn't County Governor going to do anything about it?" "I can't do anything about it." Arrestor Zhao shook his head and said, "He has people in the Imperial Court. County Governor has also reported this to the Imperial Court several times, but it was suppressed." Li Mu could understand this point. The position of County Magistrate was not high, but it was not low either. At the very least, the chief official of a county did not have the power to appoint or dismiss a county magistrate. Only the Imperial Court had this power. Even if it was just a small county magistrate, as long as he had people in the upper echelons, even the county governor could not easily touch him. After saving the last person, Arrestor Zhao said to Li Mu, "You rest here first. I'll go to the village ahead with them to take a look. Li Mu said, "It's okay, I can still do it." Although he wanted to rest, saving people was more important. The village ahead was the source of the plague. The epidemic was even more serious and patients could die at any time. Compared to human lives, his tiredness was nothing. Arrestor Zhao tried to persuade Li Mu, but seeing that he insisted, he did not try to persuade him anymore. The few of them arranged everything and left the village. As for the situation of the few villages ahead, they had already made some preparations in their hearts. However, when they arrived at the next village a few miles away, the scene in front of them was beyond everyone's expectations. The village did not have the tension and panic of a plague. At the entrance of the village, there was a large pot with black medicinal concoction boiling in it. The villagers of this village were lined up in an orderly manner, and each person scooped a bowl of medicinal concoction from the pot. Arrestor Zhao walked to the side of a villager and asked, "How is the plague in the village?" That person revealed a smile and said, "Originally, more than half of the people were sick and everyone thought that the village was finished. Fortunately, a godly doctor came and said that it was the plague. He gave us a wonderful prescription and we followed the prescription to get the medicine. That's how everyone was cured." Lin Yu thought for a moment and asked curiously, "Can I take a look at this prescription?" The villager looked troubled. He thought for a moment and said, "This, I'll have to ask the godly doctor." He strode away and quickly came back. He said embarrassedly, "The godly doctor said that this prescription is only for this type of plague. If there's no cure for the disease, the antidote will become poison. Once it's spread out and used by quacks, it will lead to a disaster." Lin Yu looked apologetic and said, "I'm sorry for being rude." He walked to the large pot at the entrance of the village and looked at it. Then he lined up and scooped a bowl of soup. After tasting it, he walked to Li Mu and the others and said doubtfully, "That's strange. These are the most basic and common soups for clearing heat and detoxifying. How can they be useful for the plague?" Arrestor Zhao smiled and said, "There are so many prescriptions in the world. How can you know all of them? It doesn't matter if it's common or uncommon. As long as it can cure the plague, it's a good medicine." He leaned against a tree at the entrance of the village and let out a long sigh. He said, "It's good that everything's fine." "It's good that everything's fine," Li Mu had already asked around. Because of the godly doctor's appearance, the infected villagers in the previous few villages had all been cured. No one had died. The godly doctor's timely appearance had allowed him to complete his task ahead of time. He might even be able to return to the county capital today. It was a pity that if Li Mu had personally saved the patients in these few villages, the amount of virtuous thought power he could obtain would be incomparably huge. Li Mu leaned against a big tree at the entrance of the village to rest. Suddenly, he felt a familiar energy fluctuation. It was the fluctuation of virtuous thought power. He silently chanted the clear heart mantra and felt this energy from all the villagers. However, this virtuous thought power did not belong to him, so Li Mu could not absorb it. It was produced from the villagers' bodies and surged towards a certain place. Li Mu looked over and saw a middle-aged man in a gray robe walking out of the village, surrounded by a crowd. A few of the villagers asked, "Godly doctor, are you leaving?" The middle-aged man nodded and said, "The plague here has been resolved. It's a matter of life and death. I still have to go to other villages to prevent more people from suffering." The villager walked over and held a cloth bag. He said, "The Zhou family village has no way to repay the godly doctor's kindness for saving our lives. We have gathered some money to express our sincerity. Please accept it." The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. He said, "A doctor has a benevolent heart. I didn't save people for this. You can take this money back." The villager insisted a few times, but he was rejected by the godly doctor. The villager could only give up. He turned around and said to the villagers, "The godly doctor will not accept the money." Everyone kowtowed to the godly doctor to thank him. As soon as he finished speaking, all the villagers at the entrance of the Zhou family village knelt down and kowtowed 3 times respectfully to the godly doctor. Li Mu noticed that even more virtuous thought power floated out from their bodies and surged into the godly doctor's body. He was a little envious of this scene, but not jealous. He saved the dying and healed the injured for free. This godly doctor had a benevolent heart and deserved their cow. This godly doctor had a noble character. He gave Li Mu the feeling that he was a cultivator. Li Mu habitually used his heavenly eye to observe for a while, and then couldn't help but be stunned. The godly doctor's body was surrounded by a demonic aura. He was actually a demon. However, the demonic aura on his body was clear and pure without any impurities. He walked the path of righteous cultivation. In the eyes of the people, demons were strange creatures that harmed people. However, many demons were very pure and kind. They worshipped Buddhism and were kinder than humans. Instead, it was the human heart that made people more fearful. This godly doctor's cultivation was clearly much stronger than Li Mu's. He was at least a 4th-level demon cultivator. Li Mu could see his demonic aura, but he couldn't see through his true body. He was curious. He held Bai in his hand and secretly communicated with Madame Chu. She passed a portion of her dermic powers to Li Mu through the scabbard. After a while, Li Mu felt that his body was filled with dermic powers. He used his heavenly eye again and looked at the godly doctor. In front of the Zhou family village's people stood a monster in gray clothes. The demon had the body of a human and the head of a rat. Chapter 156. The miracle-working doctor who saved lives and healed the wounded was a monster. This was not something that would make Li Mu feel strange. He did not have any prejudice against demons and ghosts. Whether it was Xiao Bai, the little snake, or the bull spirit and tiger spirit that Li Mu met, they were all demons, but they did not do anything to harm people. However, the miracle doctor who had cured the plague was a rat demon. This was a little thought-provoking. The miracle doctor had already walked far away when Lin Yu suddenly said, "I think there's something wrong with this miracle doctor." Constable Zhao was stunned and asked, "What's the problem?" Lin Yu looked at the big pot and said, "I saw the herbs in the pot. They are all heat-clearing and detoxifying herbs. If these herbs could cure the plague, there wouldn't have been so many deaths in the past." Constable Zhao was surprised and said, "You mean these people were not cured?" Lin Yu shook his head and said, "I've seen these people. They have indeed recovered, but it was not because of this pot of herbs. It was because of other reasons. No matter what, that miracle doctor is definitely not as simple as he looks." Li Mu thought for a while and said, "I also think that we should observe more. Even if there's nothing wrong with that miracle doctor, if the plague recurs, we might have to do it again." "That's true." Constable Zhao nodded and said, "Everyone has worked hard today, especially Li Mu. Let's go to the county first and wait for a few days." When they arrived at the county, Constable Zhao found an inn and prepared a few rooms for them. Everyone, including Constable Zhao, shared a room in pairs. Li Mu had a room to himself so that he could have a good rest. If the plague recurred, they still needed him to treat and save people. Tai Wei Xian Palace, Yuhuang Shiqing, inner refinement of the 3 souls, fetal light tranquility. At night, Li Mu sat cross-legged on the bed and recited the soul condensation spell. Today was the 3rd night of the lunar month. It was the best time to condense the soul. Just after midnight, Li Mu opened his eyes and a shadow floated out of his body. With a thought, the shadow floated back into his body. Before tonight, his Fa Li was comparable to a soul condensation cultivator, but it wasn't until just now that he refined the soul of fetal light, making it more condensed and able to freely enter and leave his body. As for the magic power in his body, after refining the first soul, it also increased by a level. With the massive increase in his magic power, he felt that he could attempt to cast the 3rd mantra. Li Mu made a gesture with one hand and silently chanted the fighting mantra. Nothing strange happened around him, but Li Mu could acutely feel that his body seemed to have undergone some subtle changes. Li Mu picked up Bai Yi and subconsciously swung his sword. All the sword moves he had learned before suddenly appeared in his mind again. They connected perfectly. Li Mu's body swung his sword uncontrollably. Like moving clouds and flowing water, he connected all the sword moves one by one. At this moment, a thought appeared in Li Mu's mind. Even if he were to fight with Li Qing, he was confident that he could win. Although the power of the fighting mantra was not obvious, it raised Li Mu's battle instincts and awareness to the limit. Li Mu had never heard of any supernatural powers or mantras that could achieve this. He was looking forward to the 6 syllables of the Sanskrit mantra. However, he had long realized that the 9 syllables of the Sanskrit mantra was harder to cast. He might have to wait until he concentrated before he could master the next word. The reason why he could refine the first soul tonight was mostly because of the virtuous willpower he absorbed during the day. This made Li Mu think of the rat demon. For demons, this kind of power was also beneficial to their cultivation. The rat demon's demonic aura was pure. It had never eaten human blood and did not have the slightest bit of resentment on its body. It had also never been tainted by human blood. However, if the rat demon was the one who spread the plague and turned into a divine doctor, directing and acting a good show to absorb the courage of the people, even if it did not cause any deaths, it would have violated the laws of the Great Zhou and would not be tolerated by the government. Of course, this was only Li Mu's guess. Whether or not the divine doctor was a problem remained to be seen. Outside, without Lu Hanyan to dual cultivate with, he could not play with Xiao Bai. After a busy day, Li Mu was physically and mentally exhausted. He did not continue to meditate and went to sleep with his clothes on. The next day, the constable that Constable Zhao had sent back to the county yamen to report returned with 2 more people. These 2 people were 2 of the 6 constables in the county yamen. One of them was surnamed Xian and the other was surnamed Sunday. The plague was not a joke. Every time it broke out, countless people would die. The county governor obviously attached great importance to it. 3 of the 6 constables in the county yamen had already arrived. Constable Zhao came down from upstairs and said to the 2, "You came at the right time. The situation in Yang County is a little strange. I suspect that the cause of this plague is not so simple." After a while, Constable Qian frowned and asked, "You mean that someone created this plague?" Constable Zhao nodded and said, "That divine doctor's actions are suspicious and worth paying attention to. Moreover, this plague has already appeared for a few days, but not a single person has died. When have you ever seen a plague outbreak without people dying?" Constable's son stroked the short beard on his chin and said, "If that's the case, then it's a little strange." For the next 2 days, keep a close eye on that divine doctor's whereabouts and see what else he'll do. In the next 2 days, 3 more villages within Yang County's borders were infected with the plague. Although Li Mu and the others had done their best to quarantine the villages and prevent the spread of the plague to the greatest extent, considering that the patients would have an incubation period, it was possible that there were already carriers of the plague in other villages before they arrived. Coincidentally, every time a plague outbreak broke out in a village, the divine doctor would appear. After treating the people in the village, he would move on to the next village. He would travel in a straight line along the official road, and the plague would also break out in a straight line. Along the way, it would break out and be treated by him. If at this time, the people still had not discovered the abnormality, then they would be constables in vain. The outbreak of a plague usually spread in all directions from the place of origin. It was impossible for it to break out in a straight line like this. Moreover, the death rate of the plague was extremely high. In the past few days, more than 10 villages in Yangqiu County had been infected, but not a single person had died. This was even more impossible. Without a doubt, the source of this plague was that divine doctor. He had spread this plague and treated the people along the way. His goal was to absorb merit and willpower from the people to aid his cultivation. Li Mu could not help but sigh. There was always someone better than him, and there was always a demon better than a demon. Using this method of cultivation, not only did he not need to kill people, but he could also gain a good reputation. It was much better than those heretical cultivation methods that only knew how to kill people and extract their souls. Unfortunately, this method was also unorthodox. Constable Zhao said, "It looks like we still have to catch that divine doctor if we want to completely quell this plague." Li Mu originally wanted to remind them that the other party was a 4th realm demon, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that even Constable Zhao could not tell. If he spoke, not to mention whether the other two would believe him or not, it would be difficult for him to explain himself. He thought about it and could only say, "This person can spread the plague without anyone noticing. His cultivation must be quite high. It's best to be careful." Constable Zhao smiled and said, "Don't worry. If the three of us work together, we can even fight against divine powers. That person can't be a creation realm cultivator, right?" Since Constable Zhao said so, Li Mu had nothing to worry about. 15 minutes later, Constables Zhao, Qian, and Sun, Li Mu, Lin Yu, and another old official who had condensed 3 souls left the inn and went out of the city. Yang County, Su Village. "Thank you for saving our lives, Divine Doctor." "Take care, Divine Doctor." The plague in Su Village had just been quelled. The villagers knelt on the ground and watched a middle-aged man in gray leave. The middle-aged man carried a medicine box and left Su Village. He walked into a forest and his body swayed. He held onto a tree to prevent himself from falling. After meditating for a while, his complexion improved a little. After searching the forest for a while, he finally found a few stalks of medicinal herbs. He walked to the herbs and rolled up his sleeves. There were dozens of neat scratches on his wrist. Some of them had already scabbed over, while others were new. He did not care about the scars and used his fingernail to make a new wound on his wrist. Blood dripped from the wound onto the herbs and was quickly absorbed by them. He uprooted the herbs, brushed away the soil, and put them in the medicine box. Then he walked out of the forest and along the official road, came to another village. There was also a plague outbreak in this village and more than 20 people had fallen ill. Someone stood at the entrance of the village and looked around. When he saw the middle-aged man, he was pleasantly surprised. "It's the Divine Doctor. The Divine Doctor is here. We are saved." The middle-aged man walked into the village and took out a few herbs from his medicine box. He wrote down a prescription and handed it to the village chief. He said, "Follow this prescription and add these herbs. Boil it into a pot. Drink it and you will be cured." "Thank you, Divine Doctor. I will ask someone to get the herbs." The middle-aged man stayed in the village for half a day until the villagers drank the medicine and recovered. Then he left the village amidst the villagers' gratitude. The villagers gathered at the entrance of the village and knelt on the ground as they watched him leave. No one noticed that hundreds of rats had crawled out from every corner of the village and left. In a valley far away from the village, the rats gathered again and surrounded the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man took a deep breath. Wisps of black gas escaped from the rats and were sucked into his body. He waved at the rats and said, "Disperse." The rats squeaked for a while and circled around him a few times before leaving the valley. The middle-aged man felt that his body was full of psychokinesis. His eyes were filled with hope as he muttered, "It should be enough." At this moment, a white light suddenly appeared on his face. His face instantly became alert as he looked at the back of the valley. A few figures walked out from the back of the valley. Constable Zhao held a bronze mirror in his hand. The mirror shone on the middle-aged man and a monster with a rat's head appeared. Constable Zhao looked at the middle-aged man and said, "So it's a rat demon. You spread the plague and pretended to be a divine doctor to fool the people and absorb their psychokinesis. You really know how to play." Chapter 157. The rats retreated from the village and followed the middle-aged man here. Li Mu and the others, who were hiding in the dark, saw everything clearly. At this point, the truth had been revealed. The plague in Yang County was deliberately spread by this rat demon. He spread the plague and pretended to be a divine doctor. He directed and acted out a good show to deceive the people and absorb their telekinesis for cultivation. The middle-aged man looked at the people who suddenly appeared and his expression changed. He looked at Constable Zhao and tried to explain, "I did these things, but I did not harm a single life. But your actions have disturbed the peace of Yang County," Constable Zhao said. Using this method to steal the people's telekinesis is not allowed by the imperial court. Come with us to the county yamen. The middle-aged man said, "I will go to the yamen and turn myself in, but not now." As soon as he finished speaking, he quickly fled in a certain direction. However, he only ran a few steps before another figure walked out from behind a tree in front of him. He changed directions, but he was still blocked by someone. The three constables, Zhao, Qian, and Sun, surrounded the rat demon in the valley. Li Mu, Lin Yu, and another old official blocked the last exit of the valley, completely sealing off his escape route. The middle-aged man also knew that he could not easily escape today, so he rushed in the direction of Constable Qian. Constable Zhao and Constable Sun hurriedly chased after him. The three of them joined forces and fought the rat demon. Under normal circumstances, 3 assembled spirit cultivators would not be a match for a fourth realm demon in a head-on battle. However, the 3 constables of the county yamen were not ordinary assembled spirit cultivators. They were different from Wu Bo, who was in the assembled spirit realm, who was cultivated by a sect. They had experienced hundreds of battles and were extremely experienced in battle. With the advantage of their Dharma treasures, they were able to fight the demon to a standstill. Li Mu secretly performed the Dou incantation. In his eyes, the movements of Zhao, Qian, and Sun suddenly slowed down. Moreover, he instantly saw through several flaws in their movements. While he was amazed at the magic of this formula, he also saw some other things. The rat demon's aura seemed to be a little weak, and he did not have the heart to fight. He only defended and did not attack, constantly looking for a way out. If it wasn't for this reason, Constable Zhao and the other 2 might not have been able to fight him to a draw. The bronze mirror in Constable Zhao's hand was a powerful Dharma treasure. Every time the light reflected by the bronze mirror shone on the rat demon, its body would pause for a moment. At that moment, Constable Qian and Constable Sun would take advantage of the situation and attack. The magical treasures in their hands were all thick and solid iron chains. The chains in their hands seemed to have a life of their own. They were very flexible and could be used to attack or defend. Taking advantage of the moment when the rat demon was shown by the bronze mirror and his body froze, 2 chains were thrown out and bound his body. The 3 bailiffs each grabbed the 3 ends of the 2 iron chains. Constable Zhao shouted, "Come and help." Lin Yu's speed was very fast. He picked up the last end of the iron chain and the 4 of them stood in 4 different directions, firmly restricting the middle-aged man's movements. The middle-aged man let out a roar. Li Mu saw a round object in his mouth emitting a strong light. Then, his body suddenly expanded, and many gray hairs grew on his body. He used his thick arms to hold the iron chain. With a sudden tug, Constable Qian and Constable Sun were sent flying. He exerted more force, and the iron chains in Constable Zhao and Lin Yu's hands flew out. In the end, the strength of a human could not compare to that of a demon. The middle-aged man broke free of the iron chains and madly ran out of the valley. His speed was several times faster than before. The direction he was rushing in was the direction of Li Mu and the old official. A ray of sword light shot out from Li Mu's hand, blocking the middle-aged man for a moment. This moment was enough for the 3 constables to catch up and hold the middle-aged man back again. The middle-aged man let out an angry roar to the sky. "I didn't kill anyone. Why do you have to force me?" Constable Zhao said, "We're just following the law. You violated the laws of the Great Zhou. We can't let you go just like that." "Then I'll offend you." The middle-aged man hissed, and his body changed again. The hair on his body grew again, and his human head turned into a rat's head. His hands turned into sharp claws, glowing with a faint cold light. Although demons advocated transforming into human form, they could only unleash their full strength in their true form. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man turned into a giant rat. In the next moment, his figure disappeared before everyone's eyes. Constable Qian's body trembled, and a few bloody wounds appeared on his chest. Fresh blood seeped out of the wounds and soon turned black. "Be careful, there's poison." He only had time to warn before he fell to the ground, unconscious. Constable Zhao was shocked. "Oh no, even the primordial spirit can't resist this poison." Just as he finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He lowered his head and looked at the black blood flowing out of his chest. In the last second before his consciousness faded, he saw a black shadow pouncing toward Constable Sunday. Constable's son sensed extreme danger and instinctively wanted to dodge, but he could not outrun the black shadow. He avoided his chest, but blood burst out of his arm. His primordial spirit had only left his body halfway before it was sucked back in. He fell to the ground and no longer made a sound. After two strange sounds, Lin Yu and the old official also fell to the ground. The black shadow pounced toward Li Mu. Li Mu stood still and did not move. Clang. Bai in his hand suddenly flew out of its scabbard, and a shadow condensed in the air. Madame Chu swung her sword, and flames burst out from the sword. The black shadow was forced back and finally revealed itself. Sensing Madame Chu's aura, a hint of shock appeared in the giant rat's mung-bean eyes. Madame Chu looked at the rat demon in front of her and asked, "Young master, how should we deal with this demon?" At first, she called Li Mu master, but later on, Li Mu felt that it was too embarrassing to call him that, so he asked her to change the way she addressed him. The rat demon's aura was weak and not at its peak. After fighting with the three constables for so long, it was no longer a match for Madame Chu. He glanced at the rat demon and said, "Just capture him alive. Don't kill him." Madame Chu held Bai tightly and went forward. Li Mu stood at the side and watched the demon and ghost fight. A ghost cultivator at the peak of the soul realm with dermic powers encountered a demon of the same level that had lost more than half of its strength. There was almost no suspense in controlling the situation. In the blink of an eye, the rat demon was about to be defeated. At this moment, Li Mu suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and looked into the distance. Behind him, two wisps of strong beastly aura were rapidly approaching him without concealing their presence. These two demonic auras were not inferior to the rat demon. Clearly, they were also two fourth-realm demonic cultivators. Li Mu's expression finally changed. Madame Chu had just advanced to the soul realm. Dealing with a rat demon was already her limit. She would definitely not be a match for two fourth-realm demons. Madame Chu clearly sensed the two demonic auras as well. She stopped fighting the rat demon and immediately retreated to Li Mu's side. The enemy was outnumbered. Li Mu's best course of action was to retreat. However, Constable Zhao and the others were still lying on the ground. He could not abandon them and escape alone. Li Mu said in a low voice, "Come to the sword and lend me your dermic powers." To Li Mu, Madame Chu was a high-powered power bank that could make up for the lack of his dermic powers at any time. When he sensed the abundant dermic powers in his body, the two demonic auras were already approaching. At this moment, Li Mu realized that the two demonic auras seemed familiar. It was not until two burly men descended from the sky and landed beside the rat demon that Li Mu's face revealed a look of shock. He said, "Why are you guys here?" The green bull demon and the tiger demon clearly did not expect to meet Li Mu here. They said in surprise, "Brother Li Mu, why are you here?" Li Mu looked at them and then at the rat demon. He asked, "Do you know each other?" The rat demon transformed back into his human form. He looked at the two demons and asked, "Second brother, third brother, why are you guys here?" "We're here to take you back." The tiger demon glared at him and said, "We already know what you've done." The rat demon raised his head and said, "I didn't harm a life. I just wanted to take some dermic powers to save her. When she recovers, I will go to the government office to surrender myself." Short-sighted. The tiger demon gritted his teeth and said, "Do you think you can save her by cheating some dermic powers? She was just comforting you. Can't you tell?" The rat demon's body shook as if all his strength had been sucked out. He collapsed on the ground and his face was blank. He could not help but shake his head and said, "This is impossible, this is impossible." The green bull demon looked at the people lying on the ground and had already realized what had happened. He said to Li Mu apologetically, "I'm sorry. It's all our fault for not being strict enough and causing trouble for the government. These people are just poisoned. It's not a big deal. I'll get him to detoxify them later." Li Mu was full of doubts. He looked at the rat demon who had already collapsed and asked, What's going on? The green bull demon sighed and said, It's a long story. Chapter 158. The story of the rat demon was not a long one. A month ago, his wife was seriously injured. Her body and soul were both damaged. She did not have much time left. She knew that she did not have much time left, so she made up the lie that psychokinesis could heal her. It was to give him a glimmer of hope during this period of time so that he would not be too immersed in sorrow. That was why the rat demon spread the plague, deceived the villagers, and collected their psychokinesis. He was not doing this for the sake of cultivation, but to save his wife. This rat demon reminded him of a yellow rat. He did not expect the rat that everyone hated to cross the street to have such a true temperament. The green bull demon looked at the rat demon and said, Help them detoxify first. The rat demon took a deep breath at Constable Zhao and the others. A cloud of black chi slowly floated out of their bodies and was sucked into his body. The strength of a middle realm demon was fully displayed. Even the weak rat demon was not a match for the three constables when he got serious. After they woke up, they felt the other two powerful demon auras. Their expressions changed and they were about to pick up their weapons when Li Mu hurriedly explained, These two have no ill intentions. Don't be nervous. They looked left and right. Seeing that the two demons had no intention of attacking, the fear on their faces gradually turned to doubt. The green bull demon took the initiative to say, Sorry for the trouble. My brother has done something wrong. In a few days, I will personally bring him to the yamen to plead guilty. Today, please make things easy for us. The three constables did not say anything. Although they really wanted to bring this rat demon back right now, they had no choice but to lower their heads when they were under someone else's roof. A single fourth realm demon was enough to wipe them all out, and there were 3 of them here. If they had ill intentions, none of them would be able to escape today. Constable Zhao was depressed. Since when were there so many core formation demons in the North County? Then he seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly looked at the green bull demon and asked, Are the 3 of you the white demon king's subordinates? The green bull demon nodded and said, Yes. The 3 constables immediately stood up. Constable Zhao stood up and cupped his fists. So you are the white demon king's subordinates. Sorry. In order to show respect to the strong, people usually called 5th realm demon cultivators demon kings, while 6th realm demon cultivators comparable to Daoism Dongxian were called demon emperors. Those who could be called demon kings were at least 5th realm powerhouses. It was not hard for Li Mu to connect the dots. The white demon king mentioned by Constable Zhao was by Inxin's father. Who would have thought that the little snake's father would actually be a 5th realm Yao cultivator? Fortunately, Li Mu hadn't killed her at the time. At the time, he still couldn't bear the wrath of the Yao king. Perhaps the entire Yangqiu County would be implicated because of him. The green bull demon looked at Constable Zhao and the others and said, This brother of mine did not commit such a mistake intentionally. I hope that you can explain the situation to the commandery officer when you return. Within a month, I will personally take him to the commandery office to plead guilty. Knowing the other party's identity, Constable Zhao nodded and said, Since that's the case, we'll take our leave today. The tiger demon looked at Li Mu and asked, Is Brother Li in the county office now? Li Mu nodded and said, I just transferred here not long ago. The tiger demon sighed and said, It's not convenient these days. In a few days, if Brother Li is free, you can come to Tiger Head Mountain for a drink. Constable Zhao bowed to the 3 demons again and said to Li Mu and the others, Let's go. At this moment, the rat demon, who had been silent since the beginning, suddenly pulled out Bai from Li Mu's hand. He slid the sword across his neck and said with a smile, Since I can't save her, I'll go down and accompany her. However, his sword did not go down. The green bull demon's hand grasped the blade of the sword and Li Mu's handprint quietly loosened. The tiger demon glared at the rat demon and roared, What are you doing? Are you crazy? Constable Zhao sighed and shook his head. Let's go. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, You guys go back first. I want to take a look. Maybe his wife can be saved. Constable Zhao thought of the scene when Li Mu saved the patient. He thought for a moment and said, "If you want to go, I'll go with you." The green bull demon suddenly looked at Li Mu and said in surprise, "Brother Li, do you have a way?" Although Li Mu looked like he was only in the soul-condensing realm, the green bull demon did not forget that he and the tiger demon almost died in his hands in Yangqiu County a few months ago. Li Mu said, "I'll have to see to know." Generally speaking, for demons and ghosts, if their soul or primordial spirit foundation was destroyed, they could only wait for death. However, Li Mu did not have any other skills except for the destruction of his healing foundation. As long as he was not like that old fox who was about to die and relied on his obsession to hold on, even if his life was hanging by a thread, Li Mu would be able to pull her back from the gates of hell. The rat demon grabbed Li Mu's wrist and widened his eyes. "If you can cure her, from now on, my life is yours." Every moment wasted meant an additional moment of risk. Li Mu said, "There's no time to lose. Let's go quickly." The other two constables brought Lin Yu and Li Mu back to the inn first. Constable Zhao was worried about leaving Li Mu alone, so he went with him to the rat demon's lair. Along the way, Li Mu learned more about the White Demon King after asking Constable Zhao. The White Demon King was a white snake who had achieved success in cultivation. He had countless strong cultivators under him, and there were more than 10 Fourth Realm demon cultivators. In the North County, his power was not inferior to that of Chu Jiang of Gozhouzian. Unlike Chu Jiang of Gozhouzian, who had done many evil deeds, the White Demon King not only restrained his subordinates from committing evil deeds, but also intimidated the other demons in the North County. They did not dare to wantonly harm others, making a great contribution to maintaining the stability of the North County. It was also because of this that even the North County officials were very polite to him. Like father, like daughter. Li Mu finally knew where Bai Yinxin's natural sense of justice came from. The Green Bull Demon said, "Miss often mentions you. If she knows that you are here, she will definitely be very happy." Li Mu hurriedly said, "It's better not to tell her that I'm here." The snake was obviously addicted to the Buddha's light. In the past, when she stayed at Suhi's place, she would squeeze Li Mu dry before letting him go. Li Mu did not want to see her again, especially after he heard from the Green Bull Demon that she had successfully condensed a demon core and advanced to the Fourth Realm. The rat demon's nest was not far from here. With the use of the divine travel talisman, it only took an hour on foot. On the surface, this place looked like a village hidden in the mountains. There were more than 10 shabby thatched houses. Li Mu sensed the aura of a few transformed demonic cultivators from the houses, but most of them were demons in the shape of fetuses. In the innermost hut, there was an extremely weak demon aura. When the demons saw the rat demon return, they respectfully knelt on the ground and called out, "Your Majesty." The rat demon ignored them and ran straight to the innermost hut. Li Mu followed him in and saw a woman lying on a wooden bed in the hut. The woman's appearance was ordinary. Her face was as pale as paper, and her aura was extremely weak. She seemed to have fallen into a coma. From the demon aura emitted from her body, she should only be at the transformation stage. The moment Li Mu saw her, he heaved a sigh of relief. To be able to maintain her transformation meant that she was not at the end of her rope. Her situation was much better than that old fox. The rat demon looked at Li Mu nervously and asked, "How is it? Can you save her?" Li Mu walked to the bed and said, "Let me try." He held the woman's wrist and sent in a stream of dermic powers to check her body. This rat demon was indeed severely injured, especially her soul, which was on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, as long as she did not collapse, Li Mu could save her. Madame Chu's situation that day was even more dangerous than hers. Li Mu's right hand gradually emitted a golden light. As the golden light entered the woman's body, her soul power started to stabilize and solidify at a very obvious speed. Constable Zhao looked at this scene and clicked his tongue in wonder. The Green Bull Demon and the Tiger Demon were delighted. As for the Rat Demon, he was already ecstatic and his body was trembling. If not for the fact that he was worried about disturbing Li Mu, he would have rushed over. A moment later, Li Mu retracted his hand. The woman on the bed regained some color and her eyes slowly opened. The rat demon immediately rushed forward and held her hand. He asked with a gentle gaze, "How do you feel?" The woman smiled and caressed his face. "I'm much better. Don't worry." Li Mu looked at the rat demon couple. At this moment, he seemed to understand what Li Si meant. He and Lu Hanyan only liked each other. This was love. The rat demon sensed the recovery of his wife's soul power. He knelt in front of Li Mu and coughed a few times. "Thank you, benefactor. From now on, my life is yours." Li Mu smiled and said, "Brother Rat, you're too polite. I'm friends with Brother Tiger and Brother Ox. This is what I should do." The green bull demon smiled. The tiger demon patted his chest and said to Li Mu, "From now on, I, Tiger Demon, will recognize you as my brother." Li Mu suddenly looked at the woman and asked, "The person who injured you that day, was it a human cultivator?" The woman nodded and said, "It was a human." Li Mu took a deep breath and asked, "What kind of human?" Just now, he felt a weak aura in the rat demon's body that was about to disappear. This aura was exactly the same as Xiao Bai's grandmother, the old fox. Chapter 159. The woman extended her hand and swiped it gently in front of her eyes. In the void, the phantom of a human man appeared. Li Mu memorized the appearance of that person. The eyes of the rat demon were filled with hatred. Li Mu did not say anything. He converted all the Buddhist dharmic powers in his body into the Buddhist light of the Heart Sutra and healed the woman's essence spirit completely. The rat demon was only in the form of a transformation. Coupled with the fact that Li Mu's dharmic powers were no longer what they were in the past, the healing effect was much better than when he treated the little snake back then. Li Mu said to the rat demon, "She's fine now. She'll be fine after recuperating in peace for a few months." The rat demon was filled with joy and knelt down once more, saying emotionally, "Thank you, benefactor." Li Mu smiled gently. Although the rat demon had committed a mistake, it was pardonable. Furthermore, he would rather sacrifice his essence blood and dharmic powers than harm a human life. If he did not abide by his bottom line and was a sentimental person, Li Mu would not have helped him. The rat demon's wife was fine now. Li Mu was still concerned about Lu Hanyan and Xiao Bai and bade farewell to the three demons. The rat demon said hurriedly, "Benefactor, why don't you stay here for a few days? Let me do my duty as a host." The tiger demon also hooked his arm around Li Mu's shoulder and said, "That's right, Brother Li. I still want to have a few drinks with you." Li Mu smiled. "The yamen is busy and my colleagues are still waiting in the city. If there's a chance next time, I'll definitely come." "Since that's the case, Brother Li, you can head back first." The green bull demon smiled and said, "It won't be too late to drink when I bring him to the yamen to ask for forgiveness in a few days." The rat demon thought for a moment and suddenly forced out a ball of light from his body. "I have nothing to repay your kindness. Please accept this, benefactor." The ball of light was the psychic power he obtained from the people of a few villages. Li Mu considered for a moment and did not reject it. He accepted the ball of light. Firstly, the power was indeed useful to him. Secondly, by accepting the item, the karma between him and the rat demon could be resolved. If the rat monster clan also had a rule that they had to repay kindness, and if a rat came to him and offered itself to him in the future, Lu Hanyan would be jealous again. Besides, he still had a fox that had just transformed into a human form at home, waiting to repay his kindness. Li Mu accepted the telekinesis, and the two demons personally sent Li Mu out. Li Mu had just walked out of the thatched hut when three figures suddenly descended from the sky not far in front of him. One of them was a white-robed scholar. He was very handsome and had the appearance of a middle-aged man. He had an elegant temperament and did not exude any aura, just like an ordinary person. There were two women standing on each side of him. The person on the left was dressed in white and had a delicate appearance. When Li Mu saw her, his heart skipped a beat. It was Bai Xin, whom he had not seen for several months. The person on the right was dressed in a green dress and had a rather beautiful appearance. She had a pair of seductive peach blossom eyes, which made Li Mu's expression change even more. When Bai Yinxin saw Li Mu, she was first stunned, then she said in surprise, "Why are you here?" As for the woman in the green dress, when she saw Li Mu, she gritted her teeth and rushed up with her sword. She said sternly, "Little thief, give me your life." The road was narrow for enemies. Li Mu met two of them at once on this narrow road. Bai Yinxin was fine. Although the two of them had some misunderstandings at first, they had buried the hatchet in the end. Li Mu had been squeezed dry by her too many times, causing his legs to instinctively go soft when he saw her. As for this green snake, she had a deep hatred for Li Mu. Last time, she was sucked dry by Li Mu until her legs went soft and she was beaten up for nothing. When enemies meet, their eyes were especially red. Li Mu thought again and realized that the core condensation demon that appeared that night should be Bai Yinxin. No wonder he felt that the demon aura was inexplicably familiar. This green snake was actually Bai Yinxin's sister. Didn't that mean that she was also the White Demon King's daughter? There was no need to guess who the middle-aged scholar standing between the two of them was. The current situation did not allow Li Mu to think too much, because the green snake had already rushed over with a snake-shaped sword. A month ago, if they really fought with their lives on the line, Li Mu would not be her match without using lightning techniques. But today, the situation was completely different. The green snake chased Li Mu and slashed wildly, but she could not even touch the corner of his clothes. In Li Mu's eyes, her movements were too slow and full of flaws. A trace of surprise appeared in the green bull demon's eyes. He vaguely guessed that the reason why he and the tiger demon almost died at his hands last time was mainly because he was possessed by the female ghost by the lake. But now, seeing that a second-realm cultivator like him could handle the second Miss Fierce attacks with ease, his own strength was probably not to be underestimated. Constable Zhao was secretly shocked. He realized that he had underestimated Li Mu. Although Li Mu's cultivation was not high, his combat experience was rich. Even if he were to face Li Mu himself, he might not be able to gain the upper hand. The rat demon stood at the side, watching anxiously. He wanted to stop them, but one was his benefactor and the other was his niece. For a moment, he did not know what to do. A moment later, he gritted his teeth and was about to step forward to stop them when the middle-aged scholar smiled and said, "Let's wait and see first. This young man is not so simple. Let's let her temper her listening heart." The green snake fought with Li Mu for a while, but she could not even touch the corner of his clothes. Instead, she was panting from exhaustion. She could not help but say angrily, "Thief, do you only know how to sneak attack and run? If you have the guts, fight me directly." Li Mu cursed in his heart. Even a clay figurine would have some anger. This green snake kept stepping on his nose and face. He did not intend to tolerate it any longer. But when the green snake attacked again, Li Mu's figure flashed and dodged her sword. He raised his hand again and used the scabbard to hit her, but the green snake covered her but with one hand, her face full of shame and anger. She said angrily, "Damn thief, I'm going to kill you." Pa. After a few rounds, she threw away her sword and covered her but with both hands. She looked angrily at Bai Yinxin and said, "Sister, I'm being bullied. Come and help me." Bai Yinxin glanced at her and said, "Serves you right for sucking people's yang qi. Do you still think you're in the right?" Li Mu began to have a good impression of this Xiao Bai snake. Although her IQ was a little low, her 3 views were very good. How could such a kind sister have such a sister who could not distinguish right from wrong? The green snake picked up her sword and was about to rush up again. Seeing Li Mu raise the scabbard, her body trembled. She immediately ran to the middle-aged scholar's side and hugged his arm. She said with dissatisfaction, "Father, you're not helping me." The middle-aged scholar said, "This is your fault. Go and apologize to this little brother." The green snake's eyes widened. "I apologize to him?" The middle-aged scholar looked at her and asked, "What did I usually teach you? You have to work hard to cultivate and not harm people. You sucked people's yang qi. This is already wrong. You even attacked the officials. Don't you know what you did wrong?" The green snake did not dare to talk back. She resentfully walked to Li Mu's side and said, "I was wrong." Li Mu looked at her indifferently and asked, "What did you do wrong?" The green snake gritted her teeth and said, "I shouldn't have sucked people's yang qi. I shouldn't have attacked you, okay?" Li Mu said, "Is this your attitude of admitting your mistake?" The green snake finally could not help but say angrily, "I said I was wrong. Don't go too far." The middle-aged man said, "Listen to your heart." The green snake lowered her head again. She twisted her body and said, "I was wrong. Please forgive me." Li Mu did not buy her words at all. He ignored her and cupped his hands to the middle-aged scholar and said, "Greetings, White Demon King. You're welcome." The middle-aged scholar smiled and said, "I have to thank you for showing mercy last time and letting my daughter go. This time, you saved my sister-in-law. I owe you 2 favors." In fact, Li Mu did not want to let the green snake go last time. It was just that he could not beat a core formation monster at that time. He waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. It's not worth mentioning." The middle-aged scholar thought for a while and looked at him. He asked, "Little brother, do you know how to heal the injuries of the primordial spirit?" Li Mu nodded and said, "I know a little." The green bull demon finally realized something. He looked at the middle-aged scholar and said excitedly, "Brother Li can heal my sister-in-law. Can you also heal?" A glimmer of light appeared in the middle-aged scholar's eyes. He looked at Li Mu with a burning gaze and said, "To be honest, I have a request." Li Mu got off the bed and saw Constable Zhao and the Green Bull Demon standing outside. The Green Bull Demon handed a wooden box to Li Mu and said, "This is the Demon King's gift to you. If he could save the woman in the ice coffin, he would accept the gift." Since he didn't succeed, Li Mu was too embarrassed to accept the gift. He said, "I didn't help the Demon King much. I can't accept this gift." The Green Bull Demon shoved the wooden box into his arms and said, "Take it. It's just a few dozen pieces of spiritual jade. The Demon King won't take back what he gave out. Also, the Demon King has a request. If you don't accept it, I'll be too embarrassed to ask." Li Mu wanted to refuse, but when he heard that it was a few dozen pieces of spiritual jade, he swallowed back his words and asked, "What request?" The Green Bull Demon looked at the figure behind him and said, "The Demon King has a headache over Tingxin's stubbornness. A few days ago, she absorbed people's yang qi and made a mistake. The Demon King wants her to follow you and do something for the people in the North County to make up for her mistake." Only then did Li Mu notice that behind the Green Bull Demon, the green snake was looking at him fiercely. Li Mu decisively handed the wooden box back to the Green Bull Demon and said, "I can't accept this gift without doing anything. I really can't accept it." She ignored Li Mu and walked outside alone, with a suspicious look on her face. After asking that question, Li Mu did not see Bai Tingxin for 2 days. Just when he thought that the demon could not stand the boredom of the yamen and ran back to the mountain, he saw her again in the duty room. Bai Tingxin looked at Li Mu and said, "Let me tell you, of course I am my father and mother's daughter. My grandmother is a green snake. I didn't take after my father, I took after my grandmother." Li Mu did not know the hereditary rules of the snake race. He just wanted to live a quiet life for 2 days, but now his quiet days were over. She had been swaying in front of Li Mu for the whole morning, deliberately not letting him read in peace. Li Mu put down the book and said, "Can you be quiet for a while?" Bai Tingxin said, "No." Li Mu said, "Why don't I tell you a story so that you won't bother me in the future?" Bai Tingxin moved a chair and sat opposite Li Mu, saying, "You go first." Once upon a time, there was a green snake. What happened next? She liked to annoy people. And then she died. Bai Tingxin was obviously not satisfied with the story, so Li Mu threw her a copy of The Legend of the White Snake published by the Yunyan Pavilion for her to read. The White Demon King did a good job in educating his children. This green snake could read and write. She held the book and read it with great interest. In order to stop her from bothering him, Li Mu simply gave her the complete collection of strange stories from a Chinese studio. Soon, Bai Tingxin was addicted to the novel and could not extricate herself. Li Mu's ears were finally quiet. After Bai Tingxin finished reading the last strange stories from a Chinese studio, she asked Li Mu, "You humans all talk about love. What is love?" Li Mu was not interested in talking about love with her. He said, "You'll understand when you grow up." Bai Tingxin closed the book and said, "Is love really that good? I also want to find someone to talk about love with." She walked out of the guard room and walked around the yamen. Then she turned back and said, "You're the most good-looking person in this yamen. How about you and I talk about love?" Li Mu said without hesitation, "Nothing. I have someone I like." Bai Tingxin glanced at him and said, "Then don't talk about love. Who cares about you? I'll find someone better looking than you." As soon as she finished speaking, a voice came from outside. "Lady Lu is here. Li Mu is on guard duty. You can go in." Lu Hanyan walked to the guard room. When she saw Bai Tingxin, she was slightly stunned. She asked Li Mu, "Is it almost time to go to the yamen?" Sometimes she would come to the yamen and wait for Li Mu to go home together. Li Mu stood up and said, "Let's go." Although it was not time to go to the yamen, he had nothing to do in the yamen. Arrestor Zhao would not say anything if he went back 15 or 30 minutes earlier. Chapter 163. Those who do good suffer poverty and have a shorter life. Those who commit evil enjoy riches and have a longer life. Earth, you cannot tell good from bad. What is earth? Heaven, you are wrong to judge the virtuous and foolish to be heaven. The woman's last words were from Daoist Injustice. Li Mu had recited Daoist Injustice once in the Yunyan Pavilion. Later, he was worried that he would be struck by lightning if he cursed at the heavens, so he never dared to recite it again. How could a woman from Yang County have recited it? Li Mu's first thought was that this woman came from the same world as him. Soon he realized something. He looked at Constable Zhao and asked, "That woman who died of injustice, is she the little beggar we met in Yang County?" Constable Zhao shook his head and said, "We haven't investigated clearly yet." Li Mu muttered, "She must be." At this moment, he finally understood the reason for the inexplicable heavy rain in the county city that day. In the other world, Daoist Injustice was fictional. Most of the people who died of injustice would not have their day of redress. Even more so, they would not be able to sense the power of heaven and fulfill their vows one by one, but this was a mysterious and strange world. This world had all sorts of inexplicable and mysterious powers. The heavenly Tao of this world had a unique operating pattern. Although it was difficult to understand, it truly existed. Whether it was supernatural powers or Daoist techniques, they all used incantations or mantras to communicate with heaven and earth. Cultivators used Daoist vows to communicate with heaven and earth. If they went against their vows, they would really be punished by heaven and earth. Here, the gods were watching. One had to be careful with one's words. One could not simply curse heaven and earth. One of those two sentences must have been like Daoist techniques and mantras. It could communicate with the power of heaven and earth and cause heaven and earth to resonate. It could raise Ain's spirit to such a terrifying level. The reason Li Mu could not be like that woman was because he did not have any resentment. His overflowing resentment, coupled with heaven and earth's resonance, created such a peerless evil spirit. While Li Mu was still struggling to calm down, one of the constables suddenly wondered, "That's strange, why do these two sentences sound so familiar?" Suddenly, he slapped his head and said, "I remember now." That day when I was listening to a storyteller at the newly opened tea house in the prefecture capital, this sentence was said by the storyteller. The main culprit of this case is the storyteller. Boss, should we capture the storyteller first? Catch my ass. Constable Zhao could not help but smack him hard on the head and scolded angrily. The main point is that storyteller. The main point is that the woman was wronged and died. Her resentment shocked the heavens and earth, and she was recognized by the heavens and earth. You still dare to arrest people? Do you want to create another evil spirit and slaughter the county government? The bailiff trembled and hugged his head, not daring to say another word. Constable Zhao took a deep breath and said, "The county magistrate of Yang County has done all sorts of evil deeds and will be punished by the heavens. However, he is still an official of the imperial court. Lin Yu, you two get ready. In a moment, you will follow the two officials to Yang County." Li Mu asked, "Are we going to get rid of that evil spirit?" Constable Zhao sighed and said, "It is not certain who will get rid of who. We need to be wary of King Chujiang. With such an evil spirit appearing in the world, King Chujiang will definitely try his best to rope her in. Once she is subdued by King Chujiang, it will be a catastrophe for the entire North County." Li Mu thought about the clear eyes of the little beggar and could not help but clench his fists. Those who do good suffer poverty and have a shorter life. Those who do evil enjoy wealth and have a longer life. The Thousand Illusions Venerable had said the same thing to him. At that time, Li Mu had scoffed at it. Now, he deeply understood that this seemingly bright world had always been hiding an unknown darkness. It had been like this since ancient times. A county magistrate was killed and the county government was massacred. This kind of thing had only happened a few times since the founding of the Zhou dynasty. It would definitely attract the attention of the imperial court. The North County could not suppress this matter. The county government had already sent the news from the relay station to the central county. It was believed that the imperial court would quickly react. The evil spirit had caused the Yang County government to be destroyed. This time, the North County magistrate and the county lieutenant would lead the 6 constables and more than 10 constables to the Yang County to maintain the peace of the Yang County. What they had to fight was not only the evil spirit but also King Chujiang and his ghost generals, who might take advantage of the situation. Li Mu had an hour. He had to go home and tell Yu Hanyun. After a while, Yu Hanyun stood in the courtyard and said unhappily, "You just returned home for a few days. Why are you leaving again?" Li Mu held her hand and explained, "A big case suddenly happened in the Yang County. We have to go immediately. Otherwise, more people might be in danger." Yu Hanyun asked, "How many days will you be gone this time?" Li Mu said, "I don't know yet. But as long as the matter in the Yang County is solved, I will immediately rush back." Yu Hanyun sighed and silently helped Li Mu pack his luggage. She hugged him gently and leaned her head on his chest. She said, "Be careful." Chapter 164. The sun was shining brightly today, but everyone was shivering as they stood in the courtyard of Yang County's Yamen. In front of Li Mu and the others were 19 corpses. 13 constables, the county magistrate's family of 4, and the corpses of the Wang family's wealthy father and son were all here. These people's eyes were wide open, their mouths were wide open, and their faces were filled with terror. It was obvious that they had suffered a great shock before they died. 19 people died with their eyes wide open. They looked up at the sky in horror. It was a terrifying scene. Some of the less experienced bailiffs lowered their heads after a glance, not daring to take a second look. Even Green Snake, who had always been fearless, hid behind Li Mu, his face a little pale. Li Mu used his heavenly eye to check and saw that the bodies of these 19 people were empty. From their expressions, it seemed that the moment they saw the female ghost, their 3 souls and 7 spirits had been sucked away, leaving behind such a miserable state before death. Although the county magistrate of Yang County did not have a high cultivation base, he was still a spirit condensation cultivator. Even his primordial spirit did not last for more than an instant in front of that peerless evil spirit. County Premier Chen's face was as calm as still water. He glanced at the corpses and asked loudly, "Who's in charge of the county government of Yang County now?" Like Yangqiu County, Yang County was just a small county. There were no magistrates and no military officers. As soon as County Magistrate Chen finished speaking, a low-ranking official ran forward and quickly said, "Your Excellency, the county magistrate and the arrestor have been killed by the evil spirit. I'm the county jailer. If you have any questions, you can ask me." County Prime Minister Chen took a deep breath and said, "Tell me the truth about the whole thing." The official shuddered and said with a trembling voice, "It's like this. Squire Wang and his son usually have a close relationship with the county magistrate. The Wang father and son always give the county magistrate a lot of filial piety during the holidays. The county magistrate also takes care of them a lot. Yesterday, the young master of the Wang family kidnapped 2 women and brought them back. One of them is the daughter of a farmer in Yang County, and the other is a pretty little beggar." He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and continued, "After the young master of the Wang family kidnapped the farmer's daughter back home, he wanted to rape her but accidentally killed her. The farmer complained to the county magistrate, and the Wang father and son had already given the county magistrate a large sum of benefits. They blamed the little beggar for the woman's death." The jailer's face was pale and he said in a trembling voice, They secretly killed the little beggar's father and buried him in the mass grave." "I want to report the wife of the county magistrate of Yang County, Chen Chuan. I want to report the daughter of the county magistrate of Yang County, Chen Chuan. I want to report the son of the county magistrate of Yang County, Chen Chuan. I want to report the arrestor of Yang County, Chiyu. I want to report the arrestor of Yang County, Wei Peng." In the front hall of the county government office, County Premier Chen asked questions while Constable Zhao recorded them. Li Mu stood in the inner hall and listened for a while before he walked out. The people of Yang County were none other than the father and son of the Wang family, the family of the county magistrate of Yang County, and the arresters who died. These people relied on the county magistrate of Yang County, Chen Chuan, to bully people and commit all kinds of crimes. They were involved in more than 10 cases of murder. The lives of the people of Yang County were no different from grass in their eyes. These people, without exception, all died in yesterday's incident. In the county government office of Yang County, those who were lucky enough to survive were ordinary runners. Bai Tingxin followed them out with a pale face and said, "You humans are too scary. I will never absorb human yang qi again." The grievances of the people of Yang County lasted until the afternoon. There were still many people lining up outside the county government office. After questioning one person, County Premier Chen closed the office and ordered the rest to come back the next day. Constable Zhao looked at the thick stack of case files and rubbed his aching wrists. He said, "Humans can be bullied, but not the heavens. Their deaths were retribution. Their deaths are not to be regretted." County Premier Chen asked, "Is there any news about the evil spirit?" County Magistrate Chen said, "Several people died in Yang County during the day. They were all evil tyrants and unruly people. The evil spirit's purpose seems to be very clear." He sighed and said, "She did what should be done by the imperial court." County Premier Chen shook his head and said, "The imperial court will soon know what happened in Yang County. Chen Chuan's wife is the sister of the assistant minister of the Ministry of Personnel. If it weren't for this person, Chen Chuan would have lost his position as county magistrate. He wouldn't have run amok in Yang County and caused such trouble." None of the people of Yang County, including Li Mu and the others, sympathized with the people who died. But the imperial court would definitely not tolerate the evil spirit's existence. Although the imperial court usually did not want to provoke a fifth realm cultivator, slaughtering the entire family of an imperial court official and massacring the government office had crossed the line. The higher-ups would not tolerate her. The evil spirit did not leave Yang County. She continued to kill people. Daoist cultivation focused on following the heavenly Tao. Naturally, they would not attack a vengeful spirit that was recognized by the heavenly Tao. If the Fulu school did not attack, no one in the North County could do anything to the evil spirit. As more and more villains died by her hands, in addition to absorbing the magic power of those cultivators, her strength also increased day by day. The imperial envoy had already sent someone to ask for reinforcements. Presumably, more powerful cultivators would arrive here soon. Bai Tingxin had been quiet for the past few days. She was on guard against everyone around her. She slipped into Li Mu's duty room and asked anxiously, "Do you think that evil spirit will come looking for me?" Li Mu raised his head and looked at her. He asked, "Why would she look for you?" Bai Tingxin said worriedly, "Didn't you say that she killed a lot of bad people in the past few days? I used to absorb people's yang qi. Will she come to kill me?" Li Mu finally knew the reason why she had been afraid for the past few days. He comforted her, "Don't worry, she won't come looking for you." Bai Tingxin was slightly relieved. She asked again, "Why?" Li Mu said, "The people she killed were all evil people who had committed many crimes. They deserved to die. Although you also made mistakes, your crimes do not deserve to die." Bai Tingxin was relieved. She asked curiously, "How does she know who are evil and who are good people?" Li Mu explained, "People who have killed people will have evil spirits, resentment, blood, and will definitely lack righteousness. Ghosts are the most sensitive to these. Naturally, they can distinguish. If you have these on you that night in the bamboo forest." Li Mu did not finish his sentence. Bai Tingxin asked, "What happened that night in the bamboo forest?" Li Mu put down the dossier and gave her a meaningful smile. He said, "What do you think?" If she was really an evil demon, Li Mu would have taken her life that day in the bamboo forest. Bai Tingxin understood Li Mu's answer. Her face turned pale, and she ran out quickly. Li Mu picked up the dossier again and sighed softly. If the little beggar had turned into an evil spirit and left Yang County after taking her revenge, she could have gone to Yudu or a place where no one could find her to cultivate. She could have continued to exist in another form. However, she had chosen this path. Even if she killed people who deserved to be killed, the imperial court would still erase her completely for the sake of dignity and face. Yang County on a remote mountain path. More than 10 cultivators surrounded a ball of black fog. That evil spirit is inside. Everyone, let's attack together. Let's kill this ghost together and split the rewards equally. These cultivators rushed forward and attacked the black fog with all kinds of Fu magical treasures, divine arts, and spells. Chapter 166. In the blink of an eye, the feminine-looking man was lying on the ground, motionless. Buddha is merciful. Xuandu wiped the bloodstains on his hands. His expression of compassion had returned to his face. He said in a low voice, "You can't be unreasonable." County Minister Qin, who had disappeared, appeared in the yard again. He bowed to Xuandu with one hand and said, "Master Xuandu, please." Xuandu took back the Buddhist staff from Li Mu's hand and picked up the alms bowl from the ground. He smiled at Li Mu and walked into the hall of the county office. The unconscious feminine-looking man was carried back by someone. Li Mu was about to return to the duty room when he heard a cry of pain. Green Snake held onto Li Mu's shoulder and lifted one of her legs. She was about to cry and said in pain, "My leg." Xian Du's alms bowl was a magic treasure. It was not light. An adult would have to use all his strength to barely carry it. The alms bowl had fallen and hit her foot. It seemed that she was not lightly hit. Li Mu saw her painful expression and cold sweat on her forehead. He asked, "Is it very painful?" Green Snake gritted her teeth and said, "Nonsense, I'll try hitting you." Li Mu shook his head indifferently and said, "Then you can feel the pain yourself." After that, he turned and walked to the duty room. Green Snake's face was full of hatred. She limped into the duty room after him. In the hall of the county office, County Minister Qin looked at Xuandu and said with a smile, "Master Xuandu, I haven't seen you for a long time. Your mana has improved a lot. Xuandu smiled and asked, Who was that unreasonable person just now? County Minister Chen said, he was an imperial envoy from the imperial court. He was in charge of supervising the murder of the county magistrate of Yang County. Xuandu furrowed his brows and said, Has the imperial court fallen so far that such a person who is unclear about good and evil, who cannot distinguish right from wrong, can become an imperial envoy? County Magistrate Chen shook his head and said, The officialdom is far more complicated than Master Xuandu can imagine. The wife of the county magistrate of Yang County is the sister of the assistant minister of the Ministry of Personnel. I'm afraid he's the one behind all this. I've already handed the people's petition to the county magistrate. The county magistrate will personally go to Zhong County to meet His Majesty. Xuandu put his palms together and said, Those who win the hearts of the people win the world. I hope the imperial court can give justice to the girl and the people of Yang County. Grandmaster, please believe in the imperial court and His Majesty. County Governor Chen heaved a sigh of relief and said, The most important thing now is to find that evil spirit. We can't let her continue to do whatever she wants. Their goal is to muddy the waters in Yang County and force the evil spirit to stand against the government. At that time, the evil spirit might really stand with Chu Jiang of Gojoseon and become more difficult to deal with. Li Mu thought for a while and asked, What will happen if the evil spirit falls into the hands of the imperial court? Arrestor Zhao said, Even if she has been wronged, she has committed an unforgivable crime. The chief culprits like the county magistrate of Yang County are already dead. She can't escape the dissipation of her soul. He sighed and said, The evil spirit isn't something we can worry about. The county magistrate will deal with it. Those evil spirits under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon must be eradicated as soon as possible. We don't have enough people here. You and Miss Ting Xian will be in charge of a few villages in the east of Yang County. The situation in Yang County changed again and again in the past few days. Up until now, that ferocious spirit wasn't the most difficult to deal with. Even though she'd killed many people, and they were all treacherous villains that deserved to die, King Chu Jiang was different. Many cultivators had already died at their hands, and they'd shifted the blame to that ferocious spirit. While they were taking the opportunity to harvest the cultivators' souls, they also wanted to pull the evil spirit to their side. After Arrestor Zhao finished explaining Li Mu's task, Xuandu came in from outside. He bowed to Li Mu with one hand and said with a smile, Benefactor Li, long time no see. Li Mu said, Master Xuandu, long time no see. How is the abbot? Xuandu said, Benefactor Li saved my life. The abbot has completely recovered. He often misses Benefactor Li. It was not a good thing to be missed by Xuandu and the abbot of Jinshan Temple. Li Mu smiled and changed the topic. Master Xuandu, are you also here for the evil spirit? Xuandu said, I wanted to send the evil spirit back to Jinshan Temple and use Dharma to reform her. I didn't expect her cultivation to be so profound. I'm not her opponent. If I can trap her, I'm afraid I'll need Benefactor Li's help. Li Mu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Xuandu and said, I want Master Xuandu to promise me one thing. Xuandu said, What is it? Li Mu sighed and said, That girl suffered a lot when she was alive. Even when she became an evil spirit, she never hurt innocent people. I hope you can save her. Xuandu didn't hesitate for long. He put his palms together and said, Amitba. I promise you. Damn you, Li Mu. You touched my feet and my mouth. Do. Bai Tingxin walked in angrily and pointed at Li Mu. She was about to speak when she suddenly saw Xuandu standing beside Li Mu. Xian Du revealed a benevolent expression and smiled at her. Bai Tingxin screamed, turned around and ran out quickly. Chapter 167. Xuandu seemed to have left a huge psychological shadow on Bai Tingxin. When she came to the room for the second time, she poked her head out and looked around. When she saw that only Li Mu was there, she walked in with relief. That monk left. He left. Bai Tingxin patted her flat chest and said, "That monk is too scary. I hate monks and their bowls." She moved a chair and sat in front of Li Mu. She stretched out her leg and said, "My leg still hurts. Can you treat it for me again?" Demons seemed to enjoy the feeling of Buddha's light entering their bodies. Bai Yinxin was like this. Bai Tingxin was like this. Even Xiao Bai liked to snuggle in Li Mu's arms and let Li Mu use Buddha's light to expel the demon aura for her. Of course, after she transformed, she could no longer enjoy this treatment. "I'm not your doctor. If it still hurts, you can use your mana to heal yourself." Li Mu rejected the green snake and said, "I still have errands to run. You can play here by yourself." Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's subordinates took advantage of this incident to wreak havoc in Yang County. Li Mu was responsible for the stability of several villages. Arrester Zhao originally wanted him and Bai Tingxin to be in charge together so that they could take care of each other. However, Li Mu had Bai in his hands. Unless Chu Jiang of Gojoseon personally came, his ghost generals were not afraid at all. Bringing Bai Tingxin with him would be a burden. Seeing Li Mu leave alone, Bai Tingxin quickly chased after him and shouted, "Zhao said to let me go with you. Wait for me, Yang County, inner office." The feminine man woke up from his bed and felt that his bones were falling apart. He roared, "Where is that damned monk? Men, take him down." Two figures walked in and said, "Sir, you're awake." The feminine man looked at the two divinity realm cultivators and said angrily, "You're only back now. Where the hell did you go?" The two of them looked at each other and said, "Didn't my lord ask us to capture that evil spirit?" The feminine man struggled to get up and asked, "Did you catch that evil spirit?" A theurgy cultivator replied, "No, the two of us aren't her match." The feminine man gritted his teeth and said, "Trash, don't bother about that spirit. Go and capture that monk. He dared to murder an official of the imperial court. I want his head to roll." Another divine arts cultivator said, "We can't capture that monk. He's a disciple of Heart sect and has already cultivated a golden body. We can't beat him or capture him." The feminine man took a few deep breaths and calmed himself down. He said, "No matter what, we have to give Lord Assistant Minister an explanation for this matter. Investigate it for me. Investigate the birth of that evil spirit. Investigate it thoroughly." Yang County, a village in the east. A black fog escaped from the village, but it was cut down by a sword light that came from behind. The current Li Mu, with the help of Madame Chu, could easily deal with these fourth realm ghosts. Since Chu Jiang of Gojoseon could send his subordinates out to do evil, Li Mu could also take the initiative to find them. Madame Chu said, "I don't know all of them. They are scattered all over the 13 counties in the North County. I only know a few of them." Although Li Mu did not want to be remembered by Chu Jiang of Gojoseon, he had already killed one of his ghost generals. Killing one or two was still killing. He might as well use them to help him condense his soul. After making up his mind, Li Mu stood up and said to Bai Tingxin, "You go back to the county office first. I'll go out and do something." Bai Tingxin said, "I'm not going. I want to go with you." Li Mu said, "Be good. Wait for me to go back. I'll let you feel comfortable for 2 hours. It's a deal." As soon as she finished speaking, Bai Tingxin disappeared in front of Li Mu at an incredible speed. Without her dragging him down, Li Mu did not have so many scruples. With a thought, Bai Yi flew out of the scabbard. Li Mu jumped on the sword and turned into a stream of light, quickly disappearing into the sky. In a valley in the north of Yang County. This valley was shrouded in smoke and miasma all year round. Very few people came close. It was rumored that there were man-eating evil spirits in this valley. Although no one had ever been eaten, the nearby people would take a detour when they came here. Even hunters and woodcutters would not come close to this place. Outside the valley, a figure suddenly descended from the sky. Li Mu felt the extremely dense yin qi in the valley and said, "You really know how to pick a place." Madame Chu revealed herself and said, "That red-haired ghost is here." She released her aura. After a while, thick fog rolled in the valley. A short man walked out of the thick fog. The man was short and only reached Li Mu's waist. He had conspicuous red hair. When he saw Madame Chu, he was shocked and said, "Madame Chu, you're not dead." He sized up Madame Chu and said in joy, "Not only are you not dead, but you've also advanced to the soul realm. Why are you looking for me? Have you thought it through and agreed to dual cultivate with me?" Madame Chu did not answer. What greeted the man was a sharp sword that shone with a cold light. The short man was shocked and said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Aren't you afraid of His Highness' punishment?" He hurriedly dodged and was slashed a few times by Madame Chu. His face was filled with anger and he said loudly, "Fine, if you want to play, I'll play with you." He stuck one hand into his chest and pulled out a huge mace from his body. Holding it with both hands, he waved it with the power of thunder. After the red-haired man had a weapon, Madame Chu could not gain the upper hand. Li Mu hid in the dark and watched.